You're a stranger to me. If you want to come in, the entrance fee is $30,000. It was Lynn's important wedding day. Dressed in jewelry and clothes I wouldn't normally wear, and wearing heels I wasn't used to, I headed to the venue. However, Lynn didn't let me into the venue easily. Suddenly, I was confused when asked to pay an entrance fee. Seeing my confusion, Tom, who was standing next to me, muttered a single phrase. "Let's go back," he whispered. At that moment, I could feel the tension leaving my body. Considering how I had been treated so far, I realized there was no need to persuade her just to attend the wedding. That thought crossed my mind. Yes. And with that, I accepted Tom's suggestion and left the venue. As we were leaving, I caught a glimpse of Lynn, looking triumphant. When will her character ever improve? Maybe it never will. Was I even right to try to interfere in Lynn's life? Such thoughts clouded my mind. 3 minutes after leaving the venue, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was Lynn. I wondered what she wanted as I answered the call. Little did I know at the time that this incident would escalate into something much bigger. My name is Mary Nelson. I'm 43 years old. After graduating from college, I moved away from my hometown to work as an office worker at a construction company. Since my college days, I had always felt a sense of dread about entering the workforce. Just before joining the company, I was filled with various concerns, like whether I could handle the job or build good relationships with others. But the work environment was pleasant, and my colleagues were all kind, which soon dispelled my anxieties. Supported by my bosses, seniors, and peers, I was able to take my first step as a working professional. Every day was about getting through work while being helped by those around me. Of course, there were times when I got scolded or felt down, but I think I was able to continue working because of the positive work environment. After a few years on the job, I even had juniors, and my life had become busier yet more enjoyable than before. However, I began to face a personal issue. It was about not being able to get married. Actually, not just about getting married. I didn't even have a boyfriend. Some colleagues who joined the company after me got married. I often found myself unable to sincerely say, "Congratulations on your wedding." Would I remain single forever, left behind as everyone else got married? My mind was haunted by the worst possible outcomes, and I would often feel down alone. Then one day, I was invited to a mixer by a colleague. I was probably just there to make up the numbers or to make others look good. I could foresee feeling miserable if I went. But for some reason, I wanted to show my face there. On the day of the mixer, when I arrived at the designated place, some participants had already formed their own little groups. I found an empty seat and sat down, waiting for the mixer to start. I had a faint hope that something might change once it began. But my hope was quickly dashed. Even after the mixer started, the other participants were enjoying their own conversations. It seemed like I wasn't even in their line of sight. Before I knew it, my mind was filled with thoughts of how and when I could make excuses to leave. However, about an hour into the mixer, a man approached me. That man would later become my husband, Tom. "Is this seat taken?" "Yes." I couldn't respond well to his sudden approach, but Tom didn't seem to mind. "We've already introduced ourselves, so we know each other's names." "Mary, right? I noticed you were alone the whole time." "Oh, no, you didn't have to worry about me." Tom gave a light smile and took a sip from his glass. Come to think of it, Tom seemed to be drinking alone too. As I was vaguely thinking about this, Tom began to speak up. "I was drinking alone too, so I thought it would be nice to have someone to talk to." "Yes, I'd like that." It might not be the best way to say it, but we were like two leftovers. Maybe that's why, but somehow our wavelengths matched, and it felt comfortable talking to him. Before I knew it, the mixer, which had felt so long, was about to end. "It's almost over." As I was thinking I didn't want it to end, he made a suggestion. "Would you like to exchange contact information? I'd like to see you again if you're okay with it, Mary." Oh, yes, of course. I was so surprised to be asked for my contact information that I blurted out an absurdly loud response. But the thought of having another chance to meet him. I quickly took out my smartphone and we exchanged contact details. After that, Tom and I started to meet frequently. And over the course of a few months, we progressed from friends to a romantic relationship. I had always hoped to have a boyfriend someday, but I never imagined that a guy I met at a mixer would become my boyfriend. With every date, my feelings for Tom grew stronger. I just felt happy being with Tom, and I often hoped he felt the same way about me. I wished this time could go on forever. Eventually, I even started to hope that maybe, just maybe, I could marry Tom. 6 months into this lifestyle. While talking with Tom as usual, he suddenly looked troubled. What's wrong? Well, there's something I want to talk about. Tom took a deep breath and started to speak. What he told me was shocking. Tom revealed something surprising: he had been divorced once before. And apparently, he has a child named Lynn. But Lynn isn't his biological child nor his ex-wife's. They had adopted Lynn together during their marriage. However, following a particular argument, their marriage fell apart. Eventually, they got divorced. And since his ex-wife lost interest in Lynn, Tom took her in and has been raising her alone. He hasn't yet told her about this situation. He plans to tell Lynn when she becomes an adult. I should have mentioned this earlier. It must be a shock to hear this all of a sudden. Well, I was indeed surprised. But it didn't make me want to leave Tom. In fact, I wanted to help Tom raise Lynn. I thought about it. I'm serious about our future together, Mary. That's why I needed to tell you this. If this disappoints you, I'd understand. Disappointed? I'm happy you shared this with me, and I love everything about you, Tom. I want to be with you and share our lives together. When I shared my feelings, Tom's face lit up. Really? Of course. I wouldn't lie about this. Thank goodness. Thank you. Then, Tom shared more about Lynn. His expression was much softer than the tense one he had before. Would you like to meet Lynn? I think you'll be living together with us eventually. He looked down, slightly embarrassed as he muttered. Yes. I'd love to meet her. There was no reason for me to decline. I nodded with a smile. A week later, I visited Tom's house and met Lynn for the first time. Hello. Hello. After a brief introduction, Tom led the conversation. Lynn didn't look at me much. She wasn't on her phone, but she kept looking at the floor or the walls, never meeting my eyes. What's wrong? You seem off. Do I? It's nothing. Even after that, Lynn didn't look at me. Lynn, you're in middle school now, right? Well, Despite my attempts to engage her, her responses were somewhat indifferent. It's a tricky age, and maybe she doesn't want to talk to her father's girlfriend. Sensing that, I didn't push for communication. Then, 30 minutes later, when Tom went to the bathroom, Lynn, who seemed uninterested in me until now, suddenly started a conversation. Hey, are you gonna marry my dad? Well, we've been talking about it, yes. There was no need to lie. I honestly shared that I was considering marriage. Lynn then scrutinized me and snorted with laughter. You and my dad, huh? I guess it's okay, but Dad has terrible taste in women. Couldn't he find someone better? Excuse me? I was taken aback by her words and had to ask again. Why are you so surprised? I'm just saying what I think. It would have been nice if he dated someone prettier, then he could have bragged about it. Well, I hadn't expected such comments at our first meeting, and I struggled to respond. No matter what Lynn says, my desire to marry Tom hasn't changed. But can we live together harmoniously? Can I really be a good mother to her? My anxiety about our future life only grew. A year after meeting Lynn, Tom and I got married. Even though we had been meeting Lynn during that time, it seemed she still didn't like me. Her looks and attitudes, all seeming to find me annoying, bewildered me. Tom seemed troubled too. No matter how much he cautioned her, she wouldn't listen. He had apologized to me several times for Lynn's behavior. "I'm really sorry. I never imagined Lynn would be rude to you too." "It's okay, don't worry about it." Indeed, some of the things Lynn said were hurtful. But that never made me think of stopping the marriage. I vaguely hoped Lynn would calm down eventually. However, my wish didn't come true. 2 years after marrying Tom, Lynn had become more unruly than I could have ever imagined. "Hey! I want my allowance." "I just gave it to you." "What are you spending it on?" "Socializing with friends." "And, by the way, isn't my allowance too little? My friends get more." I was sure I was giving Lynn enough allowance. Yet, she claimed it wasn't enough. "Talking about luxuries. No means no. You're so useless." Lynn had been frequently hanging out with friends since middle school. The frequency increased in high school, and so did her demands for more allowance. "Seriously unbelievable. How dare you act like a mother when you're not even related by blood?" "What do you mean by acting like a mother? I may not be related by blood, but I am your mother now." Maybe I was a bit harsh. But Lynn wouldn't listen otherwise. "I'm so irritated. Getting all high and mighty. Who do you think you are, saying you're my mother?" No matter how much I tried, Lynn continued to say hurtful things to me. It's okay if she doesn't accept me as her mother, but this is a different matter. "Regardless of what you say, the fact is that I am your mother." "You just repeat the same thing. This isn't going anywhere." It's always like this. Lynn leaves before we can resolve our discussions. And the next day, we go through the same back and forth. I could understand if she only ignored what I said, but Lynn didn't listen to Tom either. "Hey, Lynn! Enough is enough. Don't trouble your mom like that." "What mom? She's just a stranger." "A stranger. I don't need to listen to her." "Lynn." Her grades had significantly dropped since middle school. Her behavior had worsened. I felt overwhelmed by everything. At first, I thought it was just her age, but now that she's in high school, I'm seriously worried about her future. But now that her personality is formed, I couldn't do much about Lynn. "Hey! Give me my allowance. Now. I just gave it to you. When did you spend it? What does it matter what I use it for? Haven't I told you before? I need it for hanging out with friends. What, you think it's okay for me to be left out?" Lynn always used her social life as a shield whenever her allowance was denied. "That's an extreme." "It's not extreme. You just don't understand at all." Where did I go wrong? I hate my past self for not being able to deal with Lynn properly. Even though she hasn't liked me from the beginning, maybe there was something more I could have done. Every time Lynn said something cruel, I felt not anger, but a sense of failure. 3 years later, Lynn, having graduated from high school, wasn't studying or working and was leading a lazy life. She often stayed home all day, but also went out whimsically. No matter how much I advised her, my words never seemed to reach her. "Waking up at this time again. Can't you start getting your act together?" What do you mean by properly? I need specifics to understand. What I mean by a proper life is so annoying. Don't bother explaining, it's such a hassle. Lynn interrupted me and started getting ready to go somewhere. Where are you going today? Does it matter? I'm an adult now. It's none of your business where I go or what I do. But, oh, so irritating. Oh, that's right. Give me some pocket money. When she was a student, I used to give her an allowance. Even beyond the set amount, she'd frequently beg for more. I regret spoiling her too much. But now, Lynn is a high school graduate. I wish she'd take care of her own finances, whether through a job or something else. If you claim to be an adult, at least earn your own money for leisure. God, you're so annoying. My plea never reached Lynn. Instead, she shocked me with her revelation. I don't need to work anymore. What? What do you mean? Surely you're not planning to. I can't stay in this house forever. I'm getting married. My husband said it's okay for me to be a stay-at-home wife, so I don't need to work. I was hearing this for the first time. My mouth fell open in shock. Marriage! I had no idea. Well, I'm telling you now. Lynn was grinning, oblivious to my feelings. Surely, marriage requires proper preparation and introductions, doesn't it? If you've decided, you should have told us sooner. Who is he? What does he do? Don't ask so much. I could bring him over sometime. Really? Please do. I couldn't believe Lynn was offering to introduce her fiancé herself. I was surprised, but I gladly accepted her proposal. That evening, I shared with Tom what I had discussed with Lynn during the day. Initially surprised, he soon had a look of relief on his face and murmured, "So, she's getting married, huh?" Despite not being related by blood, he had raised her with care, and she was no less important to him. It must have been a moment filled with deep emotions for him. After pondering for a while, Tom's gaze fell on the newspaper, appearing somewhat lonely. Later on, Lynn, as promised, brought her fiancé over. "Nice to meet you. I'm Ricky." His voice was clear and behavior was confident. They gave me the impression of a genuinely nice young man. Ricky works in sales at a major trading company. He met Lynn during high school, fell in love at first sight, and has been together ever since. It was such a heartwarming story that it made me smile. Lynn, too, seemed to have a softer expression than usual. An hour later, the greetings concluded, and Lynn left the house with Ricky. She had met a wonderful person. The fact that Lynn had treated me harshly hadn't changed, and I had no intention of forgiving her. Yet, seeing her smile somehow made me feel relieved and brought a smile to my face as well. A year later, the day of Lynn and Ricky's wedding arrived. I was overjoyed to be able to see Lynn in her bridal attire. I prepared myself, my heart racing with excitement. Dressed in jewelry and clothes I don't usually wear, and high-heeled pumps, I headed to the wedding venue. I couldn't help but notice Tom's hands seemed to tremble as he drove. Was it from excitement or nervousness? Probably both. Both gave how much he was looking forward to this wedding. Upon arriving at the venue and entering, there were luxurious chandeliers and decorations, and I couldn't help but be dazzled, no matter my age. I've been to friends' and acquaintances' weddings at places like this before, but the awe never fades, no matter how many times I experience it. "Oh, you're here." Lynn approached us as we were looking around the venue. It seemed she had been waiting for us. "How are things going?" "Never mind that." Lynn didn't answer my question but pointed at me and said, "You're a stranger to me. If you want to come in, the entrance fee is $30,000. I was at a loss for words. I hadn't expected her to treat me with such disdain here. Seeing my confusion, Tom, who was standing next to me, spoke up. "Let's go." At that moment, I felt the tension leave my body. Indeed, I had been looking forward to the wedding. However, the harassment from Lynn hadn't changed. Was there a need to force myself to attend the wedding of someone who had been hostile toward me? Lynn's words had rapidly cooled my enthusiasm for the wedding. Yes. I accepted Tom's suggestion and left the venue. As we were leaving, Lynn's triumphant expression caught my eye. We exited the venue and got into the car. There was a heavy silence between Tom and me. Neither of us have the energy to talk or find a topic to discuss. I was overwhelmed by a sense of futility and let out an involuntary sigh. Did happiness just slip away again? While I was lost in thought, about 3 minutes after leaving the venue, my phone rang. Lynn's name was displayed on the screen. Why would she call after sending us away? As I hesitated, the call ended abruptly. But then it rang again. Call after call came in, only to be disconnected by her. It was a perplexing sight. And then, on the next call, I cautiously answered. That moment. Hey! Come back quickly! Lynn's voice pierced my ear. What? What's this all about? Just come back. How can I? We're already on our way home, and besides, after you told us to leave, now you want us back? Ricky got angry at me. Why did you send your own parents away? He asked. Hey, come back quickly. Lynn's self-centeredness was astonishing. Did she really think a plea would make us return? What? You want us back because you got scolded? Just forget all that. Just come back. The wedding will be ruined if it goes on like this. Lynn pleaded in a teary voice. However, her voice didn't move me. You shouldn't have said strange things in the first place. What's this about a $30,000 entrance fee? Then, at least ask Dad to come back. Lynn's voice was so loud that Tom, who was driving, could hear the conversation. There's no way we're going back. What are you talking about? Neither Dad nor Mom is coming back, so deal with it yourself. Mom, you can hang up the phone. I did as Tom suggested and hung up the phone. Lynn was making a fuss until the very end, but I ignored it. After hanging up, I immediately put my phone in my bag. When I checked my phone after getting home, as expected, there were several missed calls. All from Lynn, of course. The number easily exceeded 20, and I couldn't help but laugh at her desperation. The calls had stopped abruptly a few minutes earlier, perhaps she had finally given up. Ultimately, there was no contact from Lynn for the rest of the day. Nor the following day, nor the day after. She must have been scolded severely by Ricky and had no desire to contact us. We also had no inclination to reach out to her, leaving things as they were. However, a week later, Lynn suddenly showed up at our house. Seeing how angry she looked, I didn't dare let her in, fearing what she might do. I decided to deal with her at the entrance. What's up? Why are you here all of a sudden? Why didn't you come to the wedding? I asked you so much. Why would we? I called you so many times, and you didn't pick up. Ricky was really angry, and I got cold looks from his relatives. What are you going to do about it? It's astonishing how self-centered she is. I sighed and responded to Lynn. We did nothing wrong. We left because you started talking about an entrance fee. And we didn't want to come back because, honestly, it's because of how you've acted all this time. My past behavior? Lynn tilted her head, seemingly unaware of her actions. Doesn't she realize what she's been doing? It's more concerning than infuriating. You ignored us, went out to play, kept asking for money. You throw a tantrum over just a bit of scolding and lock yourself in your room. At first, we tolerated it because we thought you were just going through a phase, but we all have our limits. Huh? That issue? Can you please not refer to it as a tantrum? It makes me sound like a child. If you're asking me to stop, does that mean you acknowledge that your behavior warranted such a description? If it didn't, you would deny it. I seized the opportunity to counter. I saw the opportunity and took it. If I let it pass, who knows when we'll get the chance to talk face to face again. That's what I thought. However, Lynn deflected my response and changed the subject. Even after all these years, your know-it-all attitude really gets on my nerves. After all, you're a stranger to me. Stop trying to boss me around. If that's the case, then as a stranger, you shouldn't be asking me for money, right? Got it? Lynn looked at me with a face full of resentment. Obviously frustrated at not being able to retort. Enough. I don't care about you anymore. Just go away. Okay, then. Bye. As Lynn stormed off with her parting shot, I felt an unexpected sense of relief. For the first time, I had conveyed my thoughts so directly, and it felt liberating. Now, for the time being. She might not come barging in anymore. That moment made me realize. True enough, she didn't return. But soon I encountered something unexpected. A month after Lynn's last visit, I met Ricky downtown. Hello, Ricky. I felt it necessary to apologize for the wedding incident, so I initiated a conversation. Sorry about the trouble during the wedding. I got entangled in our family drama. Oh, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Lynn was at fault, after all. But Ricky seemed uneasy. As if my approach caught him off guard. Is everything okay? Oh, are you busy? I'm sorry. I'll leave then. No, it's not that. Just, have you been discharged from the hospital? Discharged? Huh? It seemed that Ricky had been informed by Lynn that I was hospitalized. I'm sorry. I wanted to apologize for the wedding stuff, but I was told you were hospitalized and couldn't be contacted, and that no one except your father and Lynn could visit you. Hospitalized? Why would they say I was hospitalized? Yes. So, I didn't expect to meet you here. I'm sorry, I must have seemed rude. No, not at all. You've done nothing wrong. I conveyed my thoughts to Ricky, despite being puzzled. Ricky's expression softened slightly at my words. But why would she lie about you being hospitalized? Indeed, why would she lie about such a thing? What was Lynn trying to achieve? Recalling the tumultuous past, I desperately thought of what Lynn might have planned. What Lynn tends to think. Oh. Maybe. A thought suddenly struck me. I couldn't be sure if I was right, but decided to share it with Ricky as one possibility. Maybe she didn't want to be scolded by you? Didn't want to be scolded? I heard from her that you were quite angry about the wedding incident, right? Maybe she said something to garner sympathy, thinking that even someone angry would soften if they heard her parents were hospitalized. Does that make sense? I see. When I suggested a possible reason, Ricky seemed to understand. Indeed, after the wedding, I was so angry that I barely spoke to her. Hearing that her mother was hospitalized made me feel like continuing to be angry was wrong. Ah. I fell right into Lynn's trap, didn't I? How embarrassing. Ricky frowned. He was clearly upset about being deceived. What should I say to comfort him? As I was pondering, Ricky spoke up again. But if that's the case, then why? What's wrong? Ricky looked even more perplexed than when he first saw me. Curious, I asked for more details. Lately, Lynn has been saying she's going to visit you in the hospital, leaving the house often. She says she's staying at her parents' house because her dad is lonely. Back home? But she hasn't been there. At that moment, the worst-case scenario flashed through my mind. Should I tell Ricky, or should I keep quiet? No, I definitely need to say something. He must have realized it himself by now. Could it be that she's not cheating, is she? Yeah, you think so too, don't you? It's just not possible that she's staying at a friend's house so often. Ricky's face turned pale rapidly. The lies he had been told, the possibility of infidelity. How his feelings towards Lynn might have changed in these few minutes. I can't be certain, but it's clear they're not positive. Should consider hiring a detective agency for an investigation. Not forcing you, but... That was the best advice I could offer. Having evidence would never hurt. Whether to divorce or not is up to Ricky. He doesn't need to rush, he should take his time to decide. Later, Ricky, after a moment of contemplation, said with determination, "Thank you. I'll consult with a detective agency." His eyes showed resolve, yet also a hint of sadness. 2 weeks later, I received a call from Ricky. According to the detective agency's investigation, it was confirmed that Lynn was cheating. He sounded exhausted just by his voice, having been shown overwhelming evidence. But cheating. It was just a speculation, yet facing the reality was painful. I'm so sorry. for my daughter causing such trouble. It's okay. Struggling to find the right words for the disheartened man, I could sense Ricky taking a deep breath. And he said, I'm going to divorce her. Is that okay? Of course. I have no right to stop Ricky's decision. Especially when my daughter is the cause of his trouble. Ricky mentioned he wanted to have a discussion, including us. He could have gone through a lawyer, but he wanted to hear everything straight from the source first. There was no way to refuse. I, too, wanted to hear Lynn's side of the story. So, we scheduled the meeting for a week later and ended the call. What would happen next? Would Lynn admit to her actions? Overwhelmed by anxiety, I sank into the nearby sofa to escape my thoughts. A week later, Tom, Ricky, a sullen Lynn, and I were all gathered in my house. What's this about? I have plans, you know. Lynn said, lounging back dismissively. You could have discussed whatever you wanted without dragging me here, couldn't you? Couldn't you two have talked alone? Didn't want to? It's not like that. We wanted your parents to be involved too. I said I didn't want to, but you went ahead anyway. How selfish. The last thing I wanted was to be called selfish by Lynn. I was not the only one who thought so. But Ricky, unfazed, just nodded. So, what is it? Hurry up, I'm doing you a favor by being here. Lynn said, clapping her hands impatiently. Look, Lynn. We should get a divorce. Ricky said, silencing the room. Lynn seemed unable to comprehend what was being said to her. What? Divorce? Why? I don't have the confidence to continue with you. You're selfish, spend too much. I haven't been selfish or anything. It's not just that. Ricky continued, pulling out a stack of documents. You've been cheating, haven't you? I had a detective investigate. What? A detective? That's so low. Instead of denying the cheating, her reaction to the detective indicated something guilt-ridden. And didn't you wonder? Why is your supposedly hospitalized mother-in-law here? Didn't you find that strange? Oh. Lynn might have spun a web of lies too vast for her own comprehension. Seeing me, her face turned pale. Mom, why are you here? How about you stop acting so innocent? And now you call me Mom. Listen, I know about the lie you told Ricky that I was hospitalized, about your so-called visits to your affair partner under the guise of visiting me, and about staying at your parents' home because Dad was lonely. That's... Lynn's face was a picture of despair. Had she truly believed her lies would never be uncovered? And just so you know, I was the one who suggested Ricky consult a detective agency. What? Why would you suggest such a thing? I'm your daughter, aren't I? Couldn't you have taken my side for once? I'm your daughter, you say? But we're legally strangers, right? So, I'm not your mother or anything, am I? It's too late to start calling me Mom now. That's exactly why you're seen as selfish. Lynn always tried to manipulate situations to her advantage. I couldn't be manipulated by her any longer. Enough. Everyone is just the worst. Why do you all treat me so horribly? Have you ever considered my feelings? I could say the same to you. The reason things have come to this is that you've lived your life however you pleased. I used to love Lynn and tolerated her whims. But after being lied to and cheated on, I can't trust her anymore, nor do I want to continue living with her. All I want now is a divorce. Divorce. Though a normal request under these circumstances, Lynn seemed unable to comprehend. Why? Of course. You have to pay for what you've done. No. Absolutely not. Lynn began to throw a tantrum, as usual. I've done nothing wrong. Yes, I cheated. But ultimately, it's Ricky's fault. Me. Ricky was shocked by the sudden accusation. But the reason she gave was also selfish. You weren't attractive enough. Boring to be with. I wanted to break up, really. But then you landed a good job, so I thought there might be some financial benefits. Really now? I almost leaned in, angered by Lynn's words. But I reminded myself that this was between Lynn and Ricky and held back. So, you propose, and now you want a divorce and alimony? Do you think I, a housewife, have money? Weren't you the one who said it was okay for me to be a stay-at-home wife? You should take responsibility and support me for life. You only see me for my money, don't you? Of course. I can't see you as a man anymore, so I'll continue my relationship with my boyfriend. I was appalled by her cruel words. And I felt a sense of despair. But then, oh. Lynn had a sudden change of heart. I'll agree to the divorce. Really? What sudden change is this? I looked up to see Lynn wearing an eerily bright smile as she looked at Tom. Hey, Dad. Can you give me money? What? You're not a stranger, but Dad isn't. You'll surely take my side, right? Please, Dad, for your cute daughter. Lynn approached Tom with a cajoling tone. That scene was unbearably vile. All eyes turned to Tom, who had been silent since Ricky and the others arrived. What decision would he make? I can't do that. Why not? Because I'm not your real father. You're adopted. By your logic, we're not related by blood, so we're strangers. The atmosphere froze. Not just Lynn, but Ricky's face also stiffened. Also, hearing everything, how can you say you've done nothing wrong after living so selfishly? I raised you, hoping you'd become a kind person, even if we're not related by blood. This has to be a lie. You're just saying this because you don't want to pay the alimony, right? I know it. It makes no sense for me to lie now. Unlike you. Anyway, neither your mother nor I will help you. It's a good chance to dissolve the adoption. From now on, you're on your own. I saw tears fall from Lynn's eyes. Please, don't abandon me. I can't suddenly live on my own. Mom, Ricky, say something. Sorry, but I agree with Dad. You can't just use us when you're in trouble. You've caused enough trouble, so now it's time to handle things yourself. Lynn turned to Ricky, seeking support. Ricky, you're on my side, right? No. I can't live with you anymore. It's sad not knowing your real parents, but if I stay with you, I'll ruin myself too. Please, someone. Don't abandon me. I admit I was wrong. I'll change, I promise. Usually, Lynn's tantrums would get her what she wanted, but not today. She was crying and repeating that she was at fault. But all her words sounded like lies. Surely, once things settle down, she'll likely return to her usual self-indulgent ways. We all watched Lynn silently until she agreed to the divorce and the payment of alimony. Ultimately, whether Lynn resigned herself to the situation or not, she accepted the divorce. True to her nature, she didn't offer a single apology until the very end. Later, through a lawyer, Ricky filed for divorce and alimony. Tom and I proceeded with the dissolution of the adoption. Lynn seemed resigned, no longer displaying her usual bravado. How would she manage her life after losing everything? It was a mystery only she could solve. Even after dissolving the adoption, Lynn came to our house a few times asking for money, but we turned her away, now being strangers. Her sad face was noticeable, but we no longer had to care. Over time, my feelings for her had completely vanished. And it seemed Tom felt the same. Considering how kind Tom is, I thought he might still care for Lynn even after dissolving the adoption. However, he stopped mentioning Lynn's name entirely. That alone made it clear just how angry Tom must be. A year has passed since then. Tom and I are enjoying a peaceful life, possibly because we've cut ties with Lynn. I can't help but think that being able to live such a happy life now is surely because we've ceased all contact with Lynn. In the end, by consistently turning her away, Lynn stopped coming to our house. We don't know where she is or what she's doing. Yet, the fact that I'm not worried at all is proof that my feelings have completely cooled off. Lately, our joy has been traveling together. Making up for the time lost to Lynn's drama, we cherish our moments together. We're even planning our next trip. Where will we go next? Maybe going abroad. With Tom, any destination promises joy. I thought this while flipping through a travel magazine nearby. After you're done living off welfare, you poor thing. Those were the last words they said before leaving the house. I felt all the strength leave my body and just slumped down right there. I couldn't help but remember what John had said earlier. Sure, Sally Omar is independent, but I've always felt like my pride as a man was being hurt. From now on, I'm gonna build a family with Natalie. So, please, let's get a divorce. Everything seemed so trivial after that, and I signed the divorce papers to show my intention to divorce. Sometime later, I decided to discuss alimony with them, with a lawyer present. Shamelessly, an unrelated sister demanded a share of the property. However, the lawyer burst out laughing and said, "Isn't the welfare recipient you?" What? My sister was taken aback by the sudden turn of events and let out a ridiculously surprised sound. Right after that, seeing the documents the lawyer had placed on the table, my sister's face turned pale. My name is Sally Omar. My husband, John, and I have been married for 18 years, and I'm 45 years old while John is 3 years my junior at 42. We have a daughter, Lisa, who is currently 17 years old and in her second year of high school. Next year is a crucial time for her as she has exams coming up. John and I met through work. I was working at a real estate company, and John was working at a related company. We hit it off over a small matter and started going out together in our private time. John has a very delicate personality and often struggles to make decisions. At the time, I found his indecisiveness adorable and was drawn to him. I wanted to take care of John. I genuinely felt that way. This was partly because I have a much younger brother. At first, I saw John as a brother figure and took care of him, but gradually, I was attracted to his more masculine aspects. And so, after a serious relationship, we got married. John was usually indecisive, but he was the one who confessed and proposed to me. He was able to make decisions when it really mattered. And that made me feel like I could marry him. We then had Lisa, and up until now, John and I have never had a serious argument or faced a crisis of divorce. Once Lisa becomes an adult, we're planning to enjoy our second life as a couple. I had always thought that way. Hey there, Sally Omar. Mind if I crash at your place for a bit? Until Natalie showed up unannounced, dragging a huge suitcase behind her and asking. You see, I have siblings in addition to a brother. The sister standing before me is one of them. We're quite far apart in age, which might be why I get along well with my brother. However, my relationship with Natalie, who is close in age to me, has always been rocky. Being shorter than her, I always ended up with her hand-me-downs. When our parents felt sorry for me and bought me a new toy, Natalie would snatch the new doll I got and give me her old, worn-out one instead, saying, "Ah, that's so cool. Give it to me too." Saying that my sister snatched the new doll she had bought me and forced me to use the worn-out doll she had used. Her overbearing behavior didn't stop there. Taking things was just the tip of the iceberg. Once we were in elementary school, she took all my friends away, and when I got my first boyfriend in high school, she seduced him away from me. I hated her so much that I went to a different college just to avoid her, but she still interfered in my life, ruining what should have been a fun college experience. I still dislike my sister to this day. I wish I didn't have to deal with her. That's why I studied hard, got my real estate license, moved to New York, and lived a life where I didn't have to see her face. Even my wedding was planned with John, deciding on a photo shoot just for the two of us. We kept it a secret since my parents knew what my sister was like. Yet, somehow she found out I was here. Just when I thought my daughter and I could finally have some time to ourselves with her going off to college soon. Wow, Sally Omar, you're living in a nice place for yourself. Is this a house you bought? Oh, there's a spare room here. I'll be taking this room, thanks. Natalie said with her shrill voice, pulling me back to reality. Hey, this is really inconvenient. You can't just show up unannounced and expect to stay here. My husband and daughter live here too. I protested, but Natalie started snooping around the house, ignoring me. Today was a day off, but my daughter was out attending a summer course. John had left early in the morning for work. Can you please leave before the two of them come back? I pleaded over and over, but Natalie wouldn't listen. Finally, as evening arrives, the two of them come home. Who might you be? Greeted with curiosity by John, Natalie, who was surprisingly charming for a 46-year-old, introduced herself with a smile. Nice to meet you, I'm Sally Ilmar's sister, Natalie. When did you two get married? I had no idea because there was no greeting or anything. I was just hanging out at our mom's place because I was bored and found your wedding photo by chance. It's a bit cold not to share such news, even among siblings. John was aware that I had a sister. Perhaps that's why he seemed slightly troubled, as if he recognized her from the stories he'd heard. But I didn't miss it. The sight of John, extending his admiration towards my beautiful sister, was unmistakably doting. Additionally, upon her return, Lisa showed a puzzled expression. And no wonder. An aunt she'd never met before had suddenly shown up at our house. However, Natalie aggressively pushed for a cohabitation arrangement. Actually, I got fired from my job, and it's been tough to manage rent and living expenses, so I was wondering if I could stay here for a bit. Well, if it's just for a short while, I guess it's okay. What? Now is not really a good time. Lisa has important exams coming up next year. I tried to bring this up, but the two of them ignored my words and got carried away with their excitement. Actually, I've heard about your sister from Sally. Oh, it's fine, it's fine. I guess Sally was avoiding me, so you were just going along with it, right? Sorry about our sister. This was the beginning of a tumultuous daily life. Natalie demanded money without doing any housework, and even went as far as to take cash from my wallet. This all happened within just 1 week of her moving in to live with us. I've warned Natalie about this behavior several times, but she wouldn't listen. Hey, if you need money, at least tell me what it's for or why you need it. Don't just take it from my wallet without asking. Huh? Why do I have to report to you what I'm buying? Because it's my money. If she's been fired, then she should be job hunting and planning to move out as soon as possible. However, it doesn't seem like she's looking for a job, and recently, it appears that the times when John and Natalie are out have overlapped. John claimed he was working overtime, but his salary never included overtime pay. I complained about this. You're not getting paid for overtime, right? Then, you need to get properly compensated for the overtime you've worked. If you can't say it, shall I say it for you? What? You think I'm lying? I get my overtime pay separately from my salary, so there's no issue at all. John, usually calm and never seen angry before, raised his voice loudly. This was shock enough for me. Because John was not someone who would get emotional or suddenly shout. From this point on, I started to feel a crisis in our current living situation. My sister continued to laze around at home, costing us a lot of money. In fact, I spent more on her than on my daughter, Lisa, which only made me sigh. I discussed this with our parents. They apologized for their lack of oversight, which led to my sister finding out about my marriage and our home. But it wasn't their fault. It was my sister who, despite my efforts to live quietly with my husband and daughter away from our parents, obsessed over me to the point of tracking down our home. She must have been preparing to find out where we lived the moment she found our wedding photos. She's surely plotting to take what's mine and make me miserable again. The story about her being fired is even starting to sound dubious. She might have quit her job on purpose, just to freeload off us and ruin my life. That's what I've started to believe. If that's the case, we need to kick her out of the house as soon as possible. Hey, you said you got fired, but if you were enrolled in unemployment insurance, shouldn't you be able to receive unemployment benefits? I've always been a part-timer. I wasn't enrolled in anything like that, so that's why I'm in trouble. I could have gone back to our parents, but I can't burden them in their old age, right? Then, as a sister who's independent, it's your responsibility to take care of me. That's common sense. I was speechless at her unreasonable demand. After dropping out of college, my sister had been working part-time and had never held a full-time job. Learning this fact later made me realize why her job hunting was doomed from the start. 3 months after my sister started freeloading, I caught her and John in the act of cheating. I had my suspicions, but to actually witness it. Canceling a client meeting left me with some free time, so I went to a cafe. Looking outside, I saw my sister and John walking together, holding hands and chatting happily. It's unthinkable for a brother-in-law and sister-in-law to hold hands like that. At that moment, I was certain they were having an affair. After some time, once my feelings had settled, I confronted them at home. So, the overtime was a lie, huh? Sister, you've been pretending to job hunt while actually fooling around with John. How low can you get, trying to take something from me even at this age? That's why I never told you about my marriage. When I exploded with emotion and expressed my feelings in the heat of the moment, the two of them easily admitted to their affair. Then, they started saying things that were even more infuriating. If I had known such a beautiful woman was your sister, I wouldn't have been swayed by Sally's sweet talk. Sure, Sally is independent, but I've always felt like my pride as a man was being hurt. From now on, I'm going to build a family with your sister, no, with Natalie. So, please divorce me. They confronted me with a divorce paper. Understood. With things like this, there's absolutely no way to rebuild. Sister, John. From now on, I won't be taking care of your finances at all, so just be aware. After I said this, my sister burst into laughter and said something outrageous. Go get welfare, you poor thing. What? I wondered what she was talking about. As I was thinking, John, half smiling, started saying something even more appalling. Ah, right. The mother always has the upper hand in custody battles, right? I think it's better for the daughter to be with her mother, Sally, than me. The rest is up to you. With those words, the two of them left the house. About 30 minutes later, Lisa came home and was puzzled by how quiet the house had become. So, I honestly told her that we were getting a divorce. Initially shocked, Lisa seemed to accept the situation with a bit of relief after a while. Sometime later, the divorce was finalized. I decided to demand alimony from the two of them, so I arranged a meeting with them in the presence of the lawyer I had hired. Shamelessly, my sister demanded a share of the assets. However, the lawyer burst into laughter and said, "Looks like welfare is for you, isn't it?" What? My sister, taken aback by the sudden turn of events, let out an absurd scream. Right after that, when my sister saw the documents the lawyer had placed on the table, she turned pale. There's no money for asset division between this couple. At those words, my sister looked at me and John with a shocked face. Of course, John was also surprised, having been told there was hardly any money to their names. Anticipating this, I had done something right after witnessing John and my sister's affair. Therefore, the only cash we had between us was a mere $24,000. As a couple celebrating their 18th anniversary, it's a hard amount to believe. Hey, what's going on here? You had a lot of savings, didn't you? John, completely unable to grasp what was happening, asked in a panic. Upon seeing that figure, rage welled up inside me. You really don't care about Lisa at all, do you? I talked to you about this. I was thinking of transferring the education savings I've accumulated over the years into Lisa's account. You said, do whatever you want, so I moved my savings to Lisa's account. Almost all of my savings were for education expenses. You know that better than anyone, right? Lisa manages her own money, and I even paid the gift tax to transfer it to her. This can no longer be considered joint savings. When I said that with a composed face, remembering the conversation, John's complexion turned noticeably worse. Then, what's the breakdown of the $24,000? I think about 80% of it is John's secret stash. Upon hearing that, John had a look of disbelief on his face. Did you know about this, and that's why you transferred your savings to Lisa, anticipating the property division? You agreed to it. Look, you even signed the consent form yourself. With that, John became furious. I thought it was strange. Why would you ask for my consent just for that? John said this while scratching his head, clearly regretting it, but he couldn't take back his signature now. I consulted a lawyer, who explained that since John had consented to the gift to Lisa, it was no longer considered marital savings at that point. I didn't want to give the money I had saved for Lisa to these two people. That's why I thought of making a lifetime gift. Upon hearing this, my sister, dumbfounded, somehow managed to say to John, Hey, didn't you say we had plenty of savings? Weren't we supposed to live a luxurious life together? Dividing $24,000 in assets won't amount to much. Why didn't you realize Sally Omar's intentions sooner? While turning pale and berating John, he just looked away and kept silent. John, having a low salary and burdened with a lot of student loans, had hardly contributed to the living expenses since our marriage. But that was agreed upon. When John said it was difficult to contribute to the living expenses, I said, All right, I'll take care of all the living expenses. So, could you focus as much as possible on saving money for our retirement? Thus, for over a decade since I took on all the living expenses. John was supposed to have saved at least $20,000, but when we checked, it was just under $20,000. Since he didn't have to pay for living expenses, I thought saving money would be easy, but John had been wastefully spending behind my back. That must be it. By chance, when I saw the bank account statement John had left on his desk and learned how much he had saved, I felt betrayed. But maybe he's been saving properly in another account. That faint hope was also betrayed, but now that I'm divorced from him, I don't care anymore. My sister is finally understanding the seriousness of the situation and is in despair. Her body is shaking slightly, and she seems to be trying hard to think about what to do next, but it seems like she couldn't come up with anything. I decided to tell my sister, who is confused to learn that the only cash available for division is just $24,000, another truth. I looked towards John and said, I was debating whether to say this, but John, aren't you planning to quit your job? Then, our eyes met sharply, after he had been silent and avoiding my gaze until now. John, visibly shaken, darted his eyes left and right and exclaimed, How do you know I'm gonna quit my job? I haven't told anyone but the boss yet. I thought so after seeing the statement. What I pointed out was the fact that no overtime pay was being made, but actually, I was wondering about something else. That was about the use of paid time off. John used to work for a real estate company and now works for a construction company, but I've never seen him take more than the minimum 5 days of paid leave. Yet, on the recent statements John brought home, there was a notation that paid leave was being used up all at once. Using up paid leave all at once brings to mind resignation. Since then, I suspected their affair and thought maybe, thinking he would get a large sum of money by divorcing me, he decided to quit his job. I couldn't believe it turned out to be true. I sighed at John's overly optimistic thinking. Well, you are my husband after all, so you know what kind of job I've done and how much wealth I've built. To rely on that, cheat, and even choose to resign, you really haven't thought this through. At that, John's face turned red. The lawyer told my sister about welfare because, essentially, if both of them were unemployed, that's what it would come down to without work. But my sister panicked at this further truth, then seemed to realize something and exclaimed, Wait! If you alone can prepare for Lisa's college tuition and cover living expenses, there must be something fishy. I got it, you're hiding assets, aren't you? That must be it. Come on, spit it out. Taking my sister's words, John seemed to have a realization. Yeah, that's right. Natalie, actually. Sally owns a lot of real estate, so we have to divide that too. That was close, I almost got tricked. Real estate is a valuable asset, so we need to split it evenly. You've been acting all high and mighty, but you're using sneaky tactics too. Watching the two of them laughing heartily, I was dumbfounded. The lawyer couldn't hold back any longer and let out a chuckle. At that moment, the tension in the air thickened. The lawyer cleared his throat and began to explain the facts calmly. If you're going to talk about dividing assets, you should study up a bit more. John, as the ex-husband, you should know that Sally owns real estate as a company and generates profit from it. Corporations and individuals are separate entities. Sally's company is her separate property, and it cannot be divided as marital property, you know? Convinced by the expert's explanation. The two of them, their faces turning bright red, froze. And the lawyer continued. What can be divided are things like cars, houses, and cash savings. Furthermore, Sally can claim damages from you, John for $20,000, and Natalie for $6,000. As soon as this was said, their faces contorted. Isn't that a bit high? Yeah. I mean, normally, you don't hear about $20,000 for something like this, right? They hadn't anticipated this turn of events and started making excuses. However, I immediately countered. Oh, who decided that? The market rate is just a guideline. John took paid leave to secretly date my sister, and my sister, without even trying to find a job properly, was out enjoying herself on my dime. The lawyer objectively reviewed these facts and decided on this amount. What? Would you have preferred a higher amount? Hearing this, they hurriedly shook their heads. The discussion didn't conclude that day and was adjourned. But I felt a definite sense of progress. 2 weeks later, we arranged to meet again for further discussion. Then, surprisingly, my sister took a defiant stance. Give me the house and the car. It's like a compensatory division for damages, right? Then we'll give you the $24,000, and I'll pay the remaining $2,000. That should be fine, right? Her ludicrous suggestion nearly made me shout in anger. But I managed to control myself with reason and calmly assessed the situation. The house still had a mortgage, and I had maintained it at every opportunity. So, it would fetch a reasonable price if sold. The car, too, was bought new and was only 5 years old. Both would still hold value, yet if I agreed to my sister's demand, I would be the only one to lose. That was absolutely unacceptable. Sister, did you even do the math? If you consider the money from selling the house and car, you wouldn't be saying such things. Typically, it's not for the ones who cheated, like you and John, to make such demands. It's for me to say. How audacious can they be? I thought so too, but before I could continue, John, sitting next to my sister, interrupted and started saying this. You're at the company, owning assets worth $240 million, right? I don't care if you're some real estate mogul or what, but being so greedy even with all that wealth is just too much. I was momentarily taken aback, but their behavior was so absurd that I burst into laughter. Given the situation, my sudden laughter made them freeze. After laughing for a good while, I straightened my face and said, So, is that all you wanted to say? And why are you acting like the victims here? Greedy? I'm fine with being greedy. Rather than giving money to a man who cheats and abandons his daughter and a despicable sister who steals her brother-in-law, it's better for me to earn as much as I can for Lisa. They flinched. Just like the lawyer said at the meeting the other day, I wanted to tell them to study more if they want to use legal terms. I wonder what made them think they could say such things in the first place. I thought about slowly shattering their expectations. John, this house is in my name, right? Well, I know that, but we've been living together so far. So what? It's my separate property since I bought it with a loan before we got married, no matter how you look at it. The car was bought new, has had no accidents or violations, and this model sells for a good price. If you want to take it, you'll have to pay me half the appraisal value. That's the rule for property division. I own 2 cars. One is the new car currently being discussed. The other is a used compact car I bought, which probably won't fetch much. But, the lawyer said, the house and car are subject to property division. My sister believed it without thinking. But that's not what it means. Look, the lawyer just mentioned the main items subject to property division, not that they are applicable in our case. The only things we have to divide between us are the $24,000 in savings you've hoarded and my savings, plus the 2 cars, that's all. Of course, my sister knew nothing, and John, not thinking deeply, found themselves in a pinch again. They showed signs of thinking hard, but eventually became lost on what to do. John pleaded with me, lowering his head. Please! Can you just give me enough money to start a new life smoothly, huh? But it didn't seem like genuine remorse. It just looked like he was bowing his head for now to solve the problem at hand. I didn't need such a shallow apology. I hardened my heart and answered. Given the way things are, it doesn't seem like you'd want to pay for Lisa's child support either. There's just no room for compromise. Why should I have to worry about your living expenses? Realizing that further discussion wouldn't change my mind, they reluctantly signed the necessary documents. After the divorce and property settlement were finalized, my sister kept calling me persistently. Hey, why did John have so much debt? You were paying for the living expenses, right? Then, what's the point of having debt? What's going on here? My sister was freaking out on the other end of the phone. Holding back a sigh, I calmly explained the facts. It's pretty obvious when you think about it. Despite having years to save, he only had less than $20,000 saved up. Does having debt while saving suggest he made some big purchases or took out loans for them? I asked, dumbfounded. My sister, trying her best to make sense of the situation, shared more details. Yes. He took out loans for tens of thousands just to buy nonsensical luxury items. And the credit card payments were set to revolve automatically. It turned into a huge mess. Turned out, this guy was just a disaster with debt. How could you saddle me with such a person? More like you took him from me. I retorted with a half-smile, leaving her speechless. It seems John had been racking up debt without even me knowing. Now, I'm receiving multiple collection notices related to his debts. While with me, he must have hidden it carefully, but probably let his guard down after changing his address. Or maybe, being overwhelmed with his new life, he forgot to hide them. Oh, there's one more thing I didn't tell you. What now? My sister was clearly frightened, but recalling the debt conversation reminded me of something. John claimed he switched careers to work in construction, but he was actually a sole proprietor. While income and residence taxes were deducted, he had to manage other payments himself. Being self-employed, I took care of my own Social Security and health insurance, and when John left his real estate job, I made sure Lisa was covered by health insurance too. I took care of my taxes, but it turns out John hadn't been paying his Social Security since he changed jobs a year ago. I was handling the health insurance payments, so that wasn't an issue. Due to some mistake, a Social Security demand notice was sent to our house. I contacted John for permission and opened it to find it was a demand notice. He had been hiding it all along, and I had no clue. I've been paying my own Social Security, and I just assumed John was doing the same. When I called John to ask if I could open the notice, he nearly cried, begging for help. Social Security costs this much. No way, I can't pay this. We were a family, weren't we? Can't you do something, huh? What? What are you talking about? The very person who abandoned his family, his wife and child, has the nerve to say that? My logic hit John hard, rendering him speechless once more. It seemed that, understanding there was no hope left in this conversation, my sister on the other end of the phone also fell silent in despair. So, you'll just have to figure it out yourselves, I said, and hung up the phone. Eventually, John also called, complaining about the high taxes on the car he took and how he hadn't anticipated the cost of the vehicle inspection. Maintaining a car costs this much. I was shocked, you know. I thought taxes would be just tens of bucks, but they're in the hundreds. And the inspection costs so much too. Ha, it's tough, huh? Can't you take it back? No, I said shortly, and John hung up, disappointed. Following that, I received emails begging for help, but after I warned, if you keep this up, I'll consult the police about stalking, the messages stopped completely. A hellish future awaited the two of them, worse than any hell. Later, I heard that John and Natalie got divorced. Their marriage lasted only 3 months after divorcing me. Maybe their plan was doomed from the start when they realized the house was in my name and not subject to property division. Marrying with tens of thousands in debt and compensation to pay was never going to work. Moreover, their divorce seemed to be even more contentious than mine had been. Natalie was obsessed with money. Sell the new car. It's a waste to have it. Better to cash it in, right? What? I don't care about such petty cash. Besides, I paid Natalie's entire compensation, so if we're splitting, give me that money back. Such petty squabbles kept them from divorcing smoothly. In the end, John apparently chose to declare bankruptcy. Since I had already collected the compensation in full, it didn't affect me. However, John ended up jobless and penniless, eventually becoming homeless. Of course, given his prior statement about quitting his job, he couldn't retract it and left the company. His useless pride prevented him from applying for social welfare. Now, he's probably living a miserable life, begging on the streets. Natalie faced divine retribution. Despite stealing her sister's husband and cheating, she was divorced in just 3 months, and word got out, ruining her social relationships. Of course, she was disowned by my family and relatives. Besides, no company would want to hire someone like my sister, so her job hunting is still struggling. Even if she manages to get hired for a part-time job, her attitude of being strong-willed and always blaming others while claiming she's not at fault gets her fired instantly. The reality has become what the lawyer said: welfare is your only option, and now my sister is at the government office, desperately trying to get welfare assistance. However, because she continues to hold on to items that could be sold for money, she's been unable to receive welfare, got evicted from her apartment, and ended up homeless, just like John. Since her selfish actions trampled not only on me but also on Lisa's feelings, this kind of punishment seems only natural. Now, it's just the two of us living together, but our days haven't changed much. Lisa feels refreshed without John around, who did nothing for her yet always complained, telling her to study and to get into a good university. And she did it. She got accepted into a national university. Seeing my daughter becoming a college student this fall fills me with emotion all over again. My job is busier in a good way, and though I'm almost 46, I'm still in good health. I feel motivated to work even harder. So, I'm counting on you to pay back the debt. Suddenly, my husband dumped his debt on me and disappeared. No matter how many times I contacted him, I could never get through. What am I gonna do? I can't pay this huge amount. However, there were people who saved me when I was at my wit's end. Mom, it's gonna be okay. That was my daughter. My name is Emily Johnson, I'm 35 years old. I live with my husband, Michael, work full-time and juggling with house chores. I met Michael at a matchmaking party that was supposed to be a way to make up for something. I was nervous, but Michael approached me assertively, and before I knew it, we were getting along well and exchanged contacts. After that, as we kept in touch, we became attracted to each other. And then, we started dating. I never thought I'd end up dating a man I met at a matchmaking party. When we started dating, I mentioned Michael to my sister, Elizabeth. Then Elizabeth laughed out loud and said this: "You, dating a guy you met at a matchmaking party? I thought you'd quietly date someone from work." I've always been a quiet type, and even after I started drinking, I never went out for drinks with colleagues or friends. I'm surprised myself. Just went to fill the numbers, right? Yeah. When I showed her a photo of Michael, she exclaimed, "He's surprisingly handsome." After that, we talked a bit about each other's recent situations and then parted ways. Elizabeth is single and doesn't have a boyfriend. Apparently, she prefers being alone, so she has no intention of marrying or getting a boyfriend. I thought that was one way of thinking, but now I want to think about the future with Michael. How happy would I be if our relationship goes well, we marry, and have children? Oh yay! On the way back from talking to Elizabeth, my face naturally brightened. Years later, Michael and I happily got married. I remember bursting into tears when he proposed. We started living in a new apartment. We hadn't lived together before, so being with Michael all day was like a dream. We both worked full-time, so the time we came home varied. But still, we ate together and slept together. We made sure to spend a lot of time together. We had overlapping holidays, so we enjoyed lazy days at home or going out for drives, spending every day happily. Then, a change came for us. We had a child. I will never forget the moment she was born. She was a very small girl, fitting perfectly in my arms. This must be what happiness is. The mood of celebration came all at once from our relatives. We named our newborn girl Bella. After Bella was born, I quit my job and worked hard every day as a full-time housewife. Michael, seeing this, helped with the household and childcare despite being tired from work. "I'll take care of Bella, you rest." "Thank you." I thought I was lucky to have married Michael, but years later, I realized that was a mistake. A few years after Bella was born, Michael suddenly quit his job. Michael explained to me why he quit his job. Apparently, he couldn't get along with his new boss and was feeling stressed. But I wondered, shouldn't he have discussed it with me first? Sure, if my husband is suffering, quitting is an option. But now we have a family, and we were just getting by on Michael's income, so he could have at least talked to me about it a little. This is so sudden. Did you find another job yet? Don't worry, I've thought about that. His response was not very reassuring. Honestly, I was only feeling anxious, but I guess I had no choice but to trust Michael. Afterward, Michael quickly found a new job. That was a relief. I could go out and work too, but Bella is still young, and I didn't really want to make that choice. I just wanted to watch Bella grow up a little longer. How's the new job? Can you manage? Oh, yeah, well, kinda. Did something happen at work again? Problems with your boss or colleagues? No, it's fine. Don't worry so much. Look, I'll take care of Bella, you go take a bath. Okay? Thanks. Something seemed off. But I thought it might be too pushy to ask more, so I left Bella with him and went to take a bath. A few days later, Michael came home with a gloomy face. I wanted to ask if something had happened, but then I remembered that feeling from before. Yes, when Michael suddenly quit his job. Could he have quit again? I hoped my intuition was wrong. But that hope was quickly shattered. I quit my job. Why? It just didn't fit the people at the company. They kept ordering me around, being ordered around by someone much younger than me. I can't stand it anymore. I see. Well, you can just look for another one, right? I'll help too. Then, Michael's face suddenly turned scary. He raised his voice at me. What's with that look? You don't like that I quit my job? You live off my money, after all. Talking down to me when you're just a housewife. Saying that, he threw his bag onto the living room sofa. Hey! Shut up! Michael scratched his head and took out a drink from the fridge. He drank it all at once as if to quell his irritation. I had never seen Michael like this before. At the same time, an indescribable fear struck me. I had no intention of talking down to him, I just offered to help. It seemed Michael was quite irritated, and after yelling at me for a while, he heavily sat down on the sofa. I was listening to Michael, not understanding what was happening. Was this the day the rift between Michael and me began? From this point on, Michael would repeatedly get and quit jobs. We ended up living without a stable income. Hey, maybe it's time to get a proper job? At first, I tried not to nag, thinking of Michael, But things had come to this, and I couldn't help but speak up. Shut up. You should earn the money then. You're relying too much on me. But, Bella, I don't care. By this time, Michael had lost interest in Bella, treating her somewhat like a burden. He was genuinely happy when Bella was born, but he seemed like a completely different person now. No matter how much I begged, Michael wouldn't keep a job for long. After much thought, I decided to leave Bella with Elizabeth and start working myself. I'm sorry for leaving this to you. No problem at all. Let's have fun together, Bella. Sure. Bella had just started kindergarten, but I wasn't too worried. Part of it was because she was with Elizabeth, but Bella also seemed mature for her age. She would read newspapers and could even write stories with simple words. She was quiet and seemed wise beyond her years. Initially, I was honestly anxious. Would she be able to make friends? Could she communicate well with others besides me? However, it turned out there was no need for such worries, as she did make friends. As a parent, I felt very relieved. Given these circumstances, I judged it would be fine for me to start working. Surprisingly, I got a job fairly easily. Thus, I began working full-time. The salary was quite good. With this, I could support the family even if Michael quit his jobs frequently. It was hard, but my coworkers were all kind and I could enjoy working every day. A few years after I started working, Michael finally began to take his job seriously. Perhaps he found a workplace where he could settle down. That alone gave me some peace of mind. Simultaneously, I felt that Michael's mood was gradually improving. It was as if he had returned to the Michael I knew when we first got married. He began to show concern for me working full-time, asking, "Are you okay? Aren't you tired?" It was confusing because his personality had changed so much. But I thought maybe having a stable job gave him peace of mind, and I felt a bit relieved. Bella was growing up nice and healthy. By this time, Michael had become kinder to Bella and started playing with her as a father. Bella seemed to enjoy playing with Michael, which was heartwarming to see. However, I was still afraid to quit my job. Thus, I continued to rely on Elizabeth's help. Bella, is she okay? Doesn't she feel lonely? Nope. She's really good. As long as Bella was happy, that was all that mattered to me. I felt relieved and thought I should treat Elizabeth to a meal since I would continue to depend on her. A few more years passed, and Bella became a third grader, going to school happily every day. And our family relationship had improved, back to how it used to be. The times when Michael and I were at odds seemed like a distant memory. It was such a smooth period for us as a family. During this time, Michael made a suggestion. Should we consider buying a new car soon? A new car? Yeah, the one we have is okay, but I think it's time. You know, maintenance is getting tough, and there's the smog check coming up soon. Indeed, the car we were currently using was getting pretty old. Every time the smog check came around, the number of fixes seemed to increase, and the repair costs were becoming a concern. Indeed, maybe it's about time. That's right. I thought you'd say that, so look, I got some catalogs. Wow, already. Thank you. I was a bit taken aback that Michael was already set on buying a new car, but we looked through the catalogs together. Bella, come here. Which car do you want to ride in? Michael called Bella over, and eventually, the three of us were flipping through the catalogs. However, I had no idea that this action by Michael would lead to a tragedy. A few months later, we finally decided on a car, and it was delivered. It was a brand new car costing over $30,000. The car loan was in my name. Normally, it would be in Michael's name, but his job history was so unstable that I feared he wouldn't pass the credit check. I resolved to work even harder from now on to pay off the loan. I thought Michael felt the same. But my thoughts were completely off mark. Shockingly, Michael stopped coming home. He disappeared somewhere with the new car. Could Michael have been involved in some incident? While I was confused, I received a call. The caller ID showed it was from Michael.
Hello? Michael? Where are you now?
I was so worried that I raised my voice without thinking. Hey, don't shout like that. But, you suddenly disappeared, and the car is gone too. I was worried whether you ran away or got involved in some incident. I desperately explained how worried I was about Michael. But Michael laughed off my concerns and revealed shocking news. Actually, I've fallen in love with someone else. I love her more than you.
What? What do you mean?
Just what I said. I found someone I like more than you. I've filed for divorce, so don't bother me anymore. Divorce. This is too sudden. I didn't remember signing any divorce papers, but then I recalled writing them during a fight with Michael. Once signed, divorce papers indicate intent to divorce. I regretted writing them in the heat of the moment. Oh, and there's the matter of my debt. Kind of your problem now.
Debt? How much?
About $600,000? You take care of it, will you? Saying that, Michael hung up. Is this even possible? Was that smile he always showed me all a lie? As I thought this, all strength left me.
Mom, are you okay?
Bella gently rubbed my back as I sat slumped on the floor.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
I said I was fine, but of course, I was not. How am I supposed to live now, burdened with such a massive debt? $600,000 is just too much to pay off. And the car payments are in my name too. I quickly started searching for my ATM card. Shelves, cupboards, counter, locker. I searched everywhere I could think of, but it was nowhere to be found. My ATM card was anywhere to be seen. I opened the banking app on my smartphone. The balance was reduced. I had no memory of withdrawing any money. The only person who could have done this was Michael. I couldn't get through to Michael at all. It's no use. I was lost, feeling utterly defeated. But right now, I needed to focus on earning money. There was no time to dwell on my worries. So, I redirected my attention to work. I didn't want to worry Elizabeth, so I told her nothing. Of course, I didn't tell Bella either. A few weeks after Michael had run away, I lost consciousness at work. When I woke up, I was in the hospital. What?
Emily! Are you okay?
Ah, Elizabeth. Bella was there beside Elizabeth. It seemed I had collapsed due to excessive stress. Moreover, I was forced to stay in the hospital for a few days for thorough examinations. Hospitalized. Once you're discharged, we should talk about Michael. I've heard everything from Bella. From Bella. Did you know everything? Yeah. I actually heard the phone conversation with Dad. I couldn't believe Bella knew everything. I wondered if Elizabeth would scold me after being discharged, which made me a bit gloomy. The next day, the examinations began. Then, to my shock, they found cancer. It wasn't too advanced, so they said I could get much better after surgery, so I underwent the operation. Afterward, I was discharged, which was good, but I wasn't in a condition to work for a while. I had no savings, no income. And on top of that, I needed to pay for the surgery and hospitalization costs. During this time, Elizabeth and Bella were the ones who helped me. Bella had detailed to Elizabeth about my situation and what Michael had done. Hearing this, Elizabeth was furious. She wanted to find Michael and make him pay for the debt and alimony. However, Michael's whereabouts were unknown. We don't know where Michael is. How can we claim anything? Then, Elizabeth had a suggestion. Michael had the car registered under your name, right? Since you're the legal owner, why not take it back first? Can we do that? When I expressed my doubt, Elizabeth revealed something surprising. Actually, I found out where Michael works. It seemed that Michael was working at a company in the same building as Elizabeth. Elizabeth mostly worked remotely, but she said she saw him occasionally when she went to the office. If that was the case, then we should go to Michael right now. I was ready to confront him immediately. If we left him alone, he might disappear somewhere. However, Elizabeth stopped me. It's reckless to go without a plan. I have a good idea. Well, not just me, but Bella and I.
Right.
Plan. Elizabeth and Bella exchanged looks. I had no idea what they were planning. While I was staring blankly, Bella smiled broadly and said, "Don't worry, we've got it covered." What were they plotting? Even when I tried to find out, they wouldn't tell me. However, a month later, I found out what Elizabeth and Bella had done. While at Elizabeth's house, a call came in. Looking at the caller ID, it was Michael. I ignored the call once, but he kept calling persistently. Wondering what he wanted, I hesitantly answered, and Michael screamed in panic.
Help me!
What are you talking about?
Just come quickly. I'm going to get arrested by the police if it stays like this.
Michael then told me his current location before hanging up. Elizabeth and Bella, who had overheard the conversation, finally revealed their plan. Actually, we had filed a stolen vehicle report. And it was Bella's idea. Isn't that great? Bella blushed shyly. I thanked Elizabeth and Bella and headed to Michael's location. It was a park relatively close to our house. Michael was surrounded by police officers. He is likely being questioned. We went to where Michael was. We explained the situation to the officers, convincing them to leave. Afterward, Michael led us into the car and started talking. Inside, a strong-willed-looking woman sat in the passenger seat. She was glaring at us. "Man, I'm glad you came. But why did the police come to me?" Michael seemed clueless, making me sigh. "Because I've filed a stolen vehicle report. The car is mine, after all." Huh? We're already divorced. Now, Michael is essentially driving around in a car that belongs to someone else. It's only natural that a theft report was filed. He probably never imagined such a scenario. Bella then confronted Michael, piling on the pressure.
Why did you leave us, Dad? Why did you leave us with all that debt? Why?
Michael sighed wearily. But he said nothing. Planning to stay silent? If so, I can have you arrested. You know you've committed a crime by using my name without permission, right? With that, Michael started to open up bit by bit. The woman's name is Linda Carter. Michael had started working at a new company where Linda had recently been hired. They got to know each other at a welcome party and subsequently entered into a relationship. About 3 months ago, Linda became pregnant with his child. Indeed, Linda's belly was noticeably rounded. So, you abandoned us for her. Abandoned is such a harsh word. But it's true that you left us. Suddenly, Elizabeth jumped into the conversation, causing Michael to look bewildered. Watching this unfold, Elizabeth pushed forward. Then, Elizabeth started lecturing Michael about his past actions. Saddling me with his debt, his attitude towards his family, quitting jobs frequently, and his quick temper. It was unclear whether Michael was feeling remorseful or not as he kept his head down in silence. Linda seemed irritated by Michael's silence. I also asked about the reason for the debt, but he wouldn't say anything. Impatient with the silence, Linda blurted out a shocking truth. He took out loans in your name to buy me loads of designer goods. It was really the best. The result of Michael buying things for Linda was a debt of $600,000. What could he have possibly bought? From the looks of it, he must have purchased several items worth millions of yen each. It was utterly ridiculous. However, what caught my attention was Linda revealing the reason for the debt. If she was in on it with Michael, divulging this would put her at a disadvantage. As I pondered this, Bella asked Linda a question. Hey, your belly is pretty big. Is it a baby? When is it due? In about 3 more months, I guess? Due in 3 months? But that doesn't add up. If she got pregnant 3 months ago, there's still a long way to go until the birth. Elizabeth seemed to have thought the same, pressing Linda further. Is that child really Michael's? It can't be, right? It's impossible for the baby to be born in 3 months. Whose child is it? Elizabeth was direct and to the point, much to my surprise. Linda appeared ready to spill everything. Yeah, it's not Michael's child. I thought about hiding it, but it seemed like more trouble than it was worth, so I just let it out. You revealed the debt issue too? Yes, I guess Michael, you are of no use to me anymore, she said with a vulgar laugh. Being in this hellish situation made me feel sick. Michael looked at Linda incredulously, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing.
What do you mean by that?
Just what I said. As Michael and Linda started arguing, the already dreadful atmosphere got even worse. But Elizabeth broke the tension. We'll call the police now.
What? Why?
You both don't seem to listen, and seem to forget, using Emily's name for loans is a crime. Plus, driving around a car without permission. After all, Emily and Michael are strangers now. With that, Elizabeth instructed me to call the police. Despite Michael and Linda's frantic attempts to stop me, I continued with the call. Soon, the flashing lights of a police car appeared. This was the moment to finally hold them accountable. For the debts and the car, everything needed to be settled. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. Following these events, Michael and Linda faced legal repercussions. They didn't end up in prison but were ordered to pay me compensation for damages, cover the debt, and provide child support. Despite their pleas through lawyers for a reduction, the final judgment was not in their favor, especially since Bella had recorded their conversation in the car, which served as evidence. I wondered why Bella had recorded them. Upon asking, she mentioned that she got the idea from a drama she was watching with Elizabeth, where a conversation was secretly recorded. I couldn't help but admire Bella's smart thinking, while also wondering what kind of dramas Elizabeth was showing her. Now, Bella and I were staying with Elizabeth. Our homes weren't far apart, so Bella's schooling was unaffected. Thankfully, the car was returned, and Michael was dealing with the debt. If only Michael hadn't made such reckless decisions, he wouldn't have found himself in this debt crisis. Without a doubt, none of this would have been possible without Elizabeth and Bella. I'm resolved to work hard every day, living happily with the two of them.
No way! Our house is...
This house and the land belong to us. We can do whatever we want, right? The daughter-in-law should just be a maid in our house. As I raise my voice in shock, my mother-in-law is smirking at me. The moment John passed away, my mother-in-law arbitrarily demolished our house. She has always been like this. Treating me, the daughter-in-law, as if I were her servant, completely ignoring my opinions and feelings. Moreover, she misunderstands me working from home as being unemployed and thinks I'm leeching off her son. She seems to think it's okay to do anything to a leeching daughter-in-law. But I never imagined she would go this far. I've been enduring it until now, but I've reached my limit. Feeling anger rising inside me, I slowly opened my mouth to retaliate against her in front of me. My name is Mary Johnson. I'm a 43-year-old working housewife. I usually work from home. I don't have children, and it's been 12 years since my husband John and I started living together. We just got married and don't have much money, right? So, I decided to take over the house where my dad and mom were living. My parents are going to live in a new house built elsewhere, so we can live in the old one. At the beginning of our marriage, John told me such a thing, and I, who knew nothing yet, was quite happy. I was thinking of our own home, but I was anxious whether we could afford it with what John and I earn, so I was very thankful to my in-laws. Mom, thank you so much. This makes our married life more comfortable. Don't worry about it. We get to live in a new house, and we don't have to deal with the old house, so it actually helps us. I was thanked by her instead and thought I had a generous mother-in-law. Under these circumstances, the house where John and I live is registered under my in-laws' names. I have suggested changing the registration numerous times, but John has been lazy about it, and it has remained the same. However, this was a mistake. This house is also ours. You're saying to us it's troublesome if you just come over unannounced, but indeed, who do you think you are? I reprimanded her for her repeated unannounced visits. Even though I work from home, it's impossible to get any work done if you keep coming over all the time. When I mentioned this, wrapped in diplomacy, she snapped back, claiming this was their house. Since then, she has always spoken down to me, constantly complaining. As for my father-in-law, he's completely under her thumb, practically non-existent. I complained to John, but he just said it's not my problem and wouldn't even listen properly. My mother-in-law's sarcasm and harassment have escalated over the years, and recently, she has started doing unexpected things. The other day, she took home clothes of mine that were clearly too small for her, claiming they suited her better. After all, she couldn't wear them and returned them to me in a huff. What will happen if her sarcasm and harassment get worse in the end? I've been living day by day, unable to do anything, with a hint of anxiety. One night, I was enjoying a slightly luxurious dinner alone. It was my 43rd birthday, but John was going to be late because of work, so I bought some deli food from the department store's food hall. Enjoying a nice drink, I savored my solo dinner. John has only celebrated my birthday for about 2 years since we got married. Now, it seems he's completely forgotten today is my birthday. Well, it's fine. I don't want a celebration now. Having the freedom to eat what I like is the best birthday present for me. It was a brief time until John came home, but I was fully enjoying my alone time. However, the pleasant time was ruined in an instant by the merciless sound of the doorbell, followed by the thumping of footsteps. Hey, Mary, it looks like John's suit jacket isn't here yet. Hasn't he come back? My mother-in-law barges into the living room without any prior notice, making me almost sigh, oh, again. This is a regular occurrence for me. Since it happens almost every day, I don't even bother complaining to her anymore. He's going to be late because of work today. I answered with a forced smile, to which she showed a displeased face. Then she noticed the deli food on the table and her eyes widened. Mary, what's this food? You didn't make this fancy stuff, did you? I'm sure you couldn't. This is some deli food I bought. Actually, today is my birthday, so I was enjoying a little nice dinner by myself. I tried to continue, but she interrupted me with a shrill voice. Oh. While your husband is out working, you're at home enjoying a luxurious meal? What a terrible wife! Huh? But I was working today too. Working? You were just playing on the computer, right? Using my son's money to buy such nice food. I always work from home on my computer, but to her, it seems like I'm just playing games. I've explained it many times, but she doesn't listen or try to understand. For someone unemployed, indulging in such luxury, you really lack the awareness of a wife. With that, she grabbed my half-eaten meal and threw it into the trash. What are you doing? You, an unemployed person, should just eat beans or whatever. Moreover, she started rummaging through the fridge without permission. Please stop. Oh my. This cake, it's from a high-end store. Such waste on someone unemployed like you. I'll properly throw it away later. With that, she snatched the cake box. The deli food was thrown away because it was half-eaten by me. But the cake was untouched, and from her smirking face, it seemed she planned to take it home to eat. I was furious and tried desperately to take back the cake box from her. That's my birthday cake, please give it back. Oh, it's your birthday? There's nothing to celebrate. You're already in your 40s, not a child. You don't need this. And then she added insult to injury with such a snide remark. Really, you become such a lazy wife because you don't have children. I've told you over and over to have kids. At those words, I grimaced deeply. I wanted kids too. But John said having kids would be too much trouble, so he didn't cooperate. He used to say he wanted kids before we got married, but were those words a lie? I've explained to her over and over that John doesn't want them, but she seems to conveniently forget the inconvenient truths. She blames me every chance she gets, saying it's my fault we don't have children.
I'll start cleaning up now, so please go home for today. It gets dangerous when it gets dark outside.
I try to sound concerned for her, to get her out of the house. My enjoyable alone time was ruined because of her. I usually don't say anything to John, but this time I might not be able to hold back. I used to think it was okay for him to come back late, but now I'm waiting for him to come home, irritated and thinking, hurry back. When John finally comes home, I immediately try to tell him about what happened earlier. John silently hands over his bag, and as I take it as usual, I start talking.
Hey John, your mom came over today and…
Then, John grimaces severely.
Look, I'm tired, okay? Can we talk about your complaints some other time?
I would normally back off here, but today I can't hold back. Despite hesitating a bit, I persistently pressed John.
When is some other time? I know you're tired, but I need you to listen to me now. You're so persistent. I'm telling you I'm tired. I'm not free like you.
He throws his suit at me in annoyance. I snap back, irritated by his attitude.
I've been working at home too. Your job doesn't bring in much money, right? You're living off my earnings, so don't talk back to me like that.
John's words leave me wide-eyed in shock. Does he really not know that I've been working and managing our finances? The amount he gives me each month for living expenses is minimal. We couldn't possibly live on just that. Yet, it seems he's convinced that the money he provides is enough for a comfortable life. At the beginning of our marriage, I showed John the household budget and explained how much we needed each month. John was surprised, saying, "It costs more than I expected," but he seems to have completely forgotten about that. Forgetting inconvenient truths must run in his family, just like his mother.
John, my earnings are…
Thinking this misunderstanding is terrible, I try to explain in a hurry. But John forcibly cuts me off, not wanting to hear any more.
Your trivial story is less important than mine.
Look at this. He hands me the health checkup results from his company, taken about 2 months ago. Checking the content, almost all items have bad ratings.
This result is terrible. Isn't it your cooking to blame? You haven't been putting something weird in the food, have you? There's no way I would do that. Then your cooking must be unbalanced in nutrients. Watch what you're making from now on.
John says arrogantly, but he hasn't eaten the meals I've made for the last few years. In the morning, he eats snacks or fast foods left out, has lunch out, and occasionally eats my dinner but leaves the vegetables and only eats what he likes. He usually comes home drunk when he eats out. I've told him several times that such eating habits would ruin his health, but he never listened. Instead, he found my advice annoying and brushed it off. Even though it's clearly his fault, he refuses to accept any blame and puts it all on me. I'm about to snap at him in anger, but I know getting mad now will only make things worse.
You need to get a re-examination. It says so right here, doesn't it? Please make sure to get it done as soon as possible.
I urged John to go for a re-examination while suppressing my irritation. However, John frowns and retorts.
No way, that's too much hassle. You just need to be more careful, that's all.
With that, he left for a bath, leaving the living room. I was left standing there, stunned. John is a husband who doesn't even celebrate my birthday, but I was the one who chose to marry him. I am genuinely concerned about John. Yet, why can't my feelings get through to him? Feeling empty, I started to be even more careful with the meals I prepared from that day on. But despite my efforts, John passed away about a year later. I had repeatedly begged him to go for a re-examination. However, he ignored my requests and let it be.
I don't have time for such bothersome things like re-examinations.
Yet, when he was at home on his days off, he just lounged around. There were plenty of opportunities for him to go for a re-examination. And when he started saying, "I feel weird, like something's off with my body," his condition rapidly worsened, and by the time he was taken to the hospital, it was too late. There was nothing to be done, and John passed away quickly.
It's your fault my son ended up like this. Give my son back. My mother-in-law blamed me harshly for John's death. My father-in-law was still as absent as ever, but the look he gave me was filled with resentment. He probably thought the same as his wife. I told them repeatedly. I told John many times that the results of his medical checkup were bad and he needed to have a re-examination. But he wouldn't listen to me. I tried desperately to clear up the misunderstanding, but my mother-in-law wouldn't believe a word I said. It's all your fault. I'll hate you for the rest of my life. After that, we held John's funeral, but my in-laws didn't help at all. It's your responsibility, Mary. You take care of everything. That's what they told me, and I had to handle all the funeral arrangements and subsequent procedures by myself. I was so busy I felt dizzy, but my in-laws ignored it all. John often said he hated hassle, and I think he got that from his parents. My in-laws always pushed their problems onto me. This time was no different. They blamed everything on me and pushed all the troubles onto me. They acted as if it was natural and never thanked me once. I'm tired. The funeral was over, and I had finally finished all the arrangements. Today, I will rest without thinking about anything. Staggering, I crawled into bed. When I woke up, I could hear my mother-in-law's voice. Yes, thank you very much for that. Wondering what was going on, I got up from the bed. I heard her voice from outside the bedroom and realized she had let herself into our house again, and I sighed. I tidied myself up to the minimum and went to see her, who was at the entrance, suddenly handing me something. Hey, did someone come by? No, no one came. But Mary, you must be tired with all that's happened. Here, take this ticket and have a good rest. Eh? I looked at what she handed me and realized it was a ticket to the station nearest to my parents' house. Come on, hurry up and get ready. That ticket is for departure tomorrow. I've included the return ticket as well. Take a week off and relax. Pushed by her, I started preparing for an unexpected trip back home. What's all this about? It's unbelievable for her not to make a single sarcastic remark at me. Could it be that she actually feels sorry for me about it? Maybe my mother-in-law feels regret that she blamed me for John's passing away and that she pushed all the paperwork on me. And yes, I am completely exhausted right now. I needed time to stretch out and refresh by going back to my parents' house. At that time, I was still tired and didn't notice if she was scheming something. Normally, I would have been suspicious of her actions. But this time, I completely let my guard down and returned to my parents' house without a second thought. My brother and his wife live there, but when I contacted them, they said, "Come over anytime." I took their word for it and relaxed without holding back at my parents' house. I met up with old friends and played with my brother's children, fully healing my fatigue. My mother-in-law does do something nice once in a while. On the day of my return, I boarded the high-speed train in a good mood. Unusually, I bought a souvenir for her and returned home with a lighter heart and body. However, what awaited me upon my return was my house, brutally demolished. No way! Our house is... This house and land are ours, so we can do whatever we want, right? The daughter-in-law should just be a maid in our house. She, with a triumphant grin, sneered. Indeed, since the house and land were still in my in-laws' names, they could do whatever they wanted with their property. But I never imagined they would go this far. Maybe, the person she was talking to on the doorstep that day was from the demolition company. While pushing the funeral and all sorts of procedures on me, she must have been advancing her plan to demolish this house. Otherwise, there's no way they could demolish the house so quickly. She clearly looked down on me, thinking she could do anything she wanted because I was her son's wife. I never directly confronted her because she was my husband's mother. That probably emboldened her. But I won't let her have her way anymore. Oh, Mary, what's the matter? Shocked and crying, are you? Mistaking my bowed head for crying, she bent down to peer into my face. However, I slowly raised my head and faced her, showing a bright smile. Eh? What are you smiling about? Have you gone crazy from the shock?
She says it's such a shock, so she must be aware she has done something terrible. The fact was so absurd that I started chuckling. Eventually, I couldn't hold back and burst out laughing loudly. Have you really gone mad? No, I am perfectly sane. Oh, by the way, I have to decline your offer from earlier. What was it? The daughter-in-law should now be a maid in our house, right? While she was flustered by my words, she responded. No, you're lying. You've lost your husband and now your house, you have nowhere to go, right? I believe your brother's family lives at your parents' place, right? It must be embarrassing to return to your parents' house at your age, so we will take care of you. But as a maid, of course. Regaining her usual tone, she gave a sinister smirk. To that, I replied while laughing. A daughter-in-law? What are you talking about? I am single. Eh? A dumbfounded voice came from her, and I nearly laughed again. Actually, I divorced John a month before he died. Yes, John and I had already returned to being strangers. But right after submitting the divorce papers, John's condition suddenly worsened. Despite being divorced, he was someone I once loved and married, so I couldn't just abandon him. That's why I decided to take care of John until the end. With all the chaos, I had lost the moment to inform my in-laws. But I never expected such a perfect moment to come. So, I have no obligation to live with you. After all, we are strangers. She had intended to drive me out of my home and take me into hers, to treat me as a real maid. Recently, she has been complaining about how her body isn't moving as well as it used to because of her age. However, she has also been adamant about never wanting to enter a nursing home. She intended to have me look after her until she passed away. Normal people might wonder if that's a reason to demolish a house, but she is capable of doing outrageous things without batting an eye. Previously, she broke a necklace that was very dear to me right in front of my eyes. That necklace was a precious memento from my deceased mother. Such a beautiful necklace, let me see it, she said as she forcibly took it from my hand and, claiming her hand slipped, tore the delicate chain. As I cried over my broken necklace, she coldly said this. I'm sorry, it wasn't on purpose. But clinging to such a memento forever would only disappoint your mother in heaven. At that moment, I realized I would never understand her. She had done such cruel acts without remorse in the past. So, her demolishing the house didn't surprise me. She probably wanted to see me distressed from the demolition for her twisted pleasure. It seems like making my life miserable was her source of joy. In other words, she was a pitiable person with nothing else to live for. Even after revealing the shocking truth, she seemed unyielding. What? You two divorced? Did you force a divorce on your critically ill son? How could you commit such a heartless act? I'll demand alimony. If you don't want that, just do as I say. There was a reason we had to divorce. Her eyes widened in anger as she confronted me. A reason you had to divorce, huh? It must be a good one. Go ahead and say it if you can. Spitting in her fury, she screamed at me, and I frowned, stepping back from her. Then, I revealed another fact. John, your son, was having an affair. What? An affair? Apparently, this was too unexpected for her, as her body trembled slightly. John had been coming home late for years. He claimed it was because he was busy at work, but that was a complete lie. He had been staying out late to meet his mistress. I suspected the affair when he came home late 3 days in a row. Women's intuition is sharp, I was amazed. How just a slight change in behavior could reveal he was hiding something. The definitive evidence was when he left his phone on the living room table instead of taking it to the bathroom. I saw a message from his mistress saying, "Last night was fun. Let's go to that hotel again." The moment I saw that message, I realized, he really was having an affair. I had been aware of John's infidelity for some time and accepted the fact without much surprise. By then, my love for John had nearly vanished. What did it matter what someone I didn't love anymore did? I didn't need to be shocked. However, we were still married. He had to pay for betraying his wife. I acted quickly from there. I used my savings to hire a private investigator. Once I had gathered solid evidence of the affair, I took it to a lawyer and filed for divorce. The divorce was finalized a month before John passed away. I was ready to pack up and leave right after, but then John collapsed. There was no love or affection left between us, we were practically strangers. But I couldn't just leave a person suffering right in front of me. I'm not that cruel. John begged me with tears to stay until the end, and so I ended up taking care of him till his last moment. But when I say I took care of him, it was only the bare minimum. I didn't offer comforting words, I was merely there, handling his needs in a businesslike manner. John tried to cling to me out of fear as the disease ravaged his body, but I ignored him and treated him indifferently. Even after John passed away, I had no intention of ever forgiving his infidelity. But John was not in a position to pay alimony in his condition. However, I was demanding alimony from John, but since he passed away, I can no longer claim it from him. So, I decided to claim it from you too instead. Please make sure you pay. What? Why do we have to pay? My mother-in-law's eyes bulged with rage at the mention of alimony. She seemed more shocked by the alimony claim than the fact that her son had been unfaithful. It seems she adored her only son, but she loves herself more. Disgusted, I sighed and explained to her. In cases where the responsible party has passed away, the family can be held accountable. It's understandable that you're not aware of this. However, this has been confirmed by my lawyer. A lawyer? You, unemployed, can't afford a lawyer. Did you steal money from John's savings? You thief! Give back my son's money. I felt dizzy with her absurd accusations. She has always been unreasonable, but she's gotten worse over the years. But if I give in now, it would only lead to more problems later. I sighed for what felt like the umpteenth time, faced her, and slowly said, I'm sorry to say this, but I earn more than John did. What nonsense! Have you gone mad? She snorted with disbelief. I resisted the urge to retort, who's the one who's really gone mad here? Then, I rummaged through my bag and thrust a document at her. This is the payment statement from one of my clients. I have contracts with several other companies, so my annual income is higher than this. She looked from the paper to my face. Her eyes nearly popped out in disbelief as she flipped back and forth between the two. She seems unable to believe that the amount written there is real. Despite my repeated explanations, she seemed to have completely forgotten about my job. I'm a freelance programmer and make quite a good income. I worked for a fairly large company after graduating from college. While there, I built up experience and contacts, then moved to freelance work. Before marrying John, he had said, I want you to focus on our home, so quit your job. We'll probably have kids eventually. But since his single income wasn't enough for a decent life, I kept working. Now, I truly believe it was a good thing I didn't just go along with what John said back then. Up until now, I had to cover the living expenses for both John and myself, but with just me, I'll have more money to spend freely, so I can live a bit more luxuriously than before. It was fortunate that I kept the payment statement with me. Before going back to my parents' house, as urged by her, I noticed the payment statement from a client in the mailbox and thought it would be unsafe to leave it there, so I tucked it into my bag. I never imagined that when I returned, not only would security be the least of my concerns, but the house itself would be gone. You're supposed to be unemployed. She's still in denial. I bluntly presented her with the facts. The demolition of the house was unexpected, but it's not a problem. After divorcing John, I had already signed a lease for an apartment, so I was planning to let go of this house anyway. It actually saved me the trouble. What concerns me is what happened to my belongings, but well, she surely hasn't thrown everything away. She, refusing to admit defeat, pointed a trembling finger at me. It's because you didn't have children quickly that my son ended up like this. Really? You still want to blame me? If there had been children, my son would have taken better care of his health and lived longer.
It's your fault for being infertile that my son died. You should pay for your responsibility." Her ridiculously selfish reasoning made me burst into laughter. Then, I picked a particular image from my phone's gallery and showed it to her. "This is the conversation between your son and his mistress. Let me read you the message John sent. Turns out I might not be able to have kids. Got tested after my wife kept nagging, and the doc said so. So I guess, free rein to cheat. It was your son who was infertile, not me. Before marrying, I had a bridal check and was diagnosed with no issues. Unlike John, I didn't lead an unhealthy lifestyle and was in good health. I could have become pregnant any time if I had wished. Do you understand now? The problem was not with me but with your son." "That's a lie! That can't be!" "It doesn't matter if you don't believe me. My lawyer will be in touch soon. You might not believe my words, but you'll believe a lawyer's, right?" At this moment, I gave her a smile. This smile was my revenge for all the times she had her way with me. "From now on, you won't have your way anymore, and you will take full responsibility," was the message I conveyed with my full smile. Whether she got the message or not, she turned pale and collapsed weakly on the spot. After leaving her there, I headed to my new apartment. I already had the keys, and the furniture was all set up, so there would be no issue with living there. And a few days later, it seems my lawyer had contacted my in-laws. Initially, they refused the lawyer's demands, saying, "That's impossible," but when faced with the prospect of going to court, they complied without further argument. As a result, I received alimony payments from my in-laws. The in-laws tried to sell the land where our house once stood, but due to its inconvenient location, it seems they're having trouble finding a buyer. They could probably sell it if they lowered the price, but they've apparently used a significant portion of their retirement savings to pay me alimony, so they can't afford to lower it. My father-in-law, already retired, had to return to work by registering with a senior employment agency because they're struggling financially. But it seems his earnings are too low to help with their living expenses. My mother-in-law, having been a housewife with no work experience, is struggling to find employment. Because of her selfish nature, it's unlikely she'd last long anywhere. Driven by desperation, I heard she's been gathering water from a public park and picking wild plants to stave off hunger. Eating plants picked from the roadside is risky. She might accidentally consume something poisonous. But as they are now strangers to me, whatever happens to them due to their own actions is not my concern. If my in-laws had been kinder to me, or had helped me after John passed away, I might have considered the what-ifs, but reality was far from that. Whatever happens to them now is their own doing. That's a direct result of their past actions. So there's no need for my sympathy. By the way, my belongings were stored by my mother-in-law in a rental warehouse. I thought she might have taken anything valuable, but perhaps she realized she couldn't afford to mess with someone who could hire a lawyer. I was able to recover all my belongings safely. After the alimony payments, she contacted me once, help, but I ignored her and proceeded to cancel my phone contract. Only my family, work colleagues, and close friends know my new number. My new apartment is in a completely different location from where we used to live, so it's impossible for my elderly in-laws to find me. Just to be safe, I chose a new place with excellent security. If my mother-in-law does find me, security will immediately be alerted. It would just increase my hassle, so I'm hoping that won't be necessary. Right now, I am living a life of smooth sailing. Free from John's care and my mother-in-law's nagging and harassment, my life is stress-free. The only challenging aspect is my busy work schedule. Since I have more personal time, I've taken on more work, maybe a bit too much. But it's led to high recognition in my job, and it looks like busy days will continue. However, I manage to refresh myself adequately as I can meet up with close friends on weekends. At this age, many of my friends are also free from parenting duties, so it's easier to find time to catch up. Life after marrying John was filled with unpleasantness as I aged. I was scared of becoming more unhappy as I got older, but now, I'm not afraid of anything. I am free now, able to go anywhere.
I believe I will continue to live smilingly today and tomorrow. Living a life where I can keep smiling until the last moment is my goal now. My brother is a gangster, you know. A punk picking a fight threatens my husband by hinting at the existence of his gangster brother. Yet, my husband retorts with a calm demeanor. Angered by this, the punk douses my husband with whiskey. So much for our restaurant date. I stayed quiet because I didn't want to get involved, but I can't overlook my husband being ridiculed like this. The punk will end up regretting his actions, and not even crying and apologizing will be enough to be forgiven. My name is Sarah. This year, I married Roy, whom I've been dating for 3 years, and we've been enjoying a blissful newlywed life. Roy is my pride and joy. With his well-defined features, a height of 6 feet 2 inches, long limbs, he's what you'd call a head-turner. But Roy's appeal isn't just skin-deep. He understands me better than anyone else, took on the role of a homemaker to support my busy work life, and manages everything at home. And, above all, he's incredibly kind. He always puts me first. Roy truly is my pride and joy, and I believe there's no better husband out there. Roy says the same about me. There's no better wife out there. It might sound like we're just showing off to others, but we are a couple who truly respect and cherish each other. I was happy to share meals every day with my kind-hearted husband. I thought I might cause him trouble by marrying him, but I've decided to walk through life together with him. To support me, Roy quit his job and dedicated himself to being a homemaker. He never complains and always supports my career. And when I come home, he greets me with a warm smile. Roy is my rock. And I always want to be there for him, too. Even when I come home late, he's prepared dinner and waited for me. His cooking, which he initially struggled with, has improved so much that he could open his own restaurant. Just hearing him say welcome home and imagining him cooking for me fills me with joy and love. Roy, thank you for today. You've become too good at cooking. It's delicious. I wasn't great at it at first, but I've come to enjoy it. I think I'm better suited to this than typing away at a computer at work. It's fun thinking about what to make every day so you can have a good day. That makes me happy, thank you. But isn't it hard waiting for me to come home late every day? You can go to sleep first if you want. It's okay. I want to eat with you. It's lonely eating alone. I miss seeing your face. I feel the same way. I'll try to finish work earlier and come home as soon as I can. Thank you for everything. Saying this, enjoying Roy's homemade meals was my happiness. But I worry he might be overextending himself, so when I say he can go to sleep first, I mean it. Even so, I know he waits up for me. Thinking this, I enjoy the macarons he prepared for dessert and the warm tea he made. Did you make these macarons yourself? Yes. Pretty cool, right? Surprisingly easy. Baking is fun too. I feel like I've discovered a new talent. Laughing as he swiftly cleans up, Roy is the epitome of a homemaker. And then, I take a bath he prepared, and get into the neatly made bed. He does the housework perfectly, even though I tell him it's okay to slack off sometimes. He never shows tiredness and always takes care of me. Thanks to Roy, even if I come home late from work, I can sleep well and recover. I feel refreshed in the morning, all thanks to Roy. I'm truly grateful. I work hard, hoping to continue this happy life with Roy forever. When I wake up in the morning, the living room downstairs already smells of coffee. On the table, there's fried eggs, sausage, salad, soup, and perfectly toasted bread. The country-style breakfast I requested. Roy greets me with a fresh smile in the morning. Good morning. Did you sleep well? I did, thank you. I appreciate you making breakfast every morning, but isn't it hard on you? Did you sleep well? You should take it easy and sleep in sometimes, you know? It's fine. I'm just doing it because I enjoy it. Come on, eat up. I put lots of veggies in the soup, so it's packed with nutrients. Saying that, we sit down and eat breakfast together. I wonder if there's something I can do for Roy, who always works so hard for us. While sipping my soup, I think it over. Come to think of it, we haven't had the chance to enjoy a leisurely meal out together recently because of our busy schedules.
Hey, Roy. How about we go on a date this Saturday? It's been a while. Let's go to that place we used to love.
That place is a restaurant, and has been our go-to even before we got married. It's a cozy restaurant that's not too pricey or pretentious, where we can relax and enjoy ourselves. Roy has always loved the meal there.
That sounds great, I'd love to go. But are you sure about work? You're not pushing yourself too hard?
I want to go out with you too. Work's fine, I can make adjustments. Hearing that, Roy's face lit up with a childlike smile, making me look forward to Saturday even more. And then, on the promised Saturday, I managed to finish work early and got home by 5 p.m.
You're early. I'm just getting ready, so wait a bit for me.
I was so excited, I powered through my work this morning. Our reservation isn't until 7 p.m., so take your time getting ready. I relax in the living room, waiting for Roy to finish preparing.
It's been a while since I've done my hair. Kinda nervous.
It really has been a long time since we've gone out together. I'm sorry for always being so busy. Today, you can eat as much as you like.
Really? Awesome. I've already decided what I'm gonna order. Can't wait.
Despite his playful words, Roy, dressed in his stylish outfit for going out and with his hair perfectly done, looked so handsome and mature it even made me, his wife, swoon a little.
Sorry to keep you waiting. Shall we go?
Since we still had time before our reservation, we decided to take a walk near the restaurant, enjoying the beautiful night scenery at a popular date spot. It's really been a while since we've had the chance to just go out like this, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm really sorry for always being so busy.
Sarah, you apologize too much. I know you're working hard, and I want to support you.
Thanks, Roy. But still, it's nice to go on a date like this once in a while. Yeah, it is.
We shared laughs and conversations, enjoying the freshness of our rare date night. While it's always fun spending time at home together, stepping out for a date felt exciting and refreshing. As the time for our dinner reservation approached, we headed to the restaurant. We have a reservation. As soon as we opened the door to the restaurant, we were greeted by loud voices and crude laughter.
That's hilarious.
You're crazy, man. Though this place is known for its down-to-earth atmosphere, we'd never encountered such rowdy customers before. While curious, I hoped to avoid any trouble and took a seat without paying them much attention.
Hey! Where's my drink?
I ordered more.
Sorry, please give us a moment. We've been waiting. Hurry it up.
Their rude behavior was unmistakable. It seemed the noise was coming from a group of punks. 3 young men with flashy hairstyles and visible tattoos were drawing attention to themselves. I observed discreetly, hoping to avoid any involvement.
Hey, waiter! Hurry up with our order. We're short-tempered. It's scary when we have to wait.
Though already displeased by their behavior, I tried not to let it ruin our special date. Roy seemed unfazed, his eyes sparkling as he examined the menu posted on the wall. What should we start with? Just as Roy was about to catch the waiter's attention, one of the punks caught his eye.
Hey, you! You just made eye contact with me, didn't you? Hey, are you disrespecting me?
It was the worst possible turn of events. It seemed the punks had been drinking heavily and now decided to pick a fight with Roy. However, Roy ignored them and tried to call over the waiter.
Excuse me, we'd like to order, please.
Their frustration with Roy's disregard only seemed to escalate as the punks stood up and approached us, encircling our table.
Hey! I'm talking to you. Are you deaf? You made eye contact with me, didn't you? Are you mocking me?
Dealing with uneducated, rule-breaking punks is truly tiresome. While I silently wished for no escalation, Roy calmly addressed them.
I was just trying to place an order with the waiter. What's the issue? What's the issue? You made eye contact with me. I think you're mistaken. Roy continued to look at the menu on the wall, ignoring their provocations. Their irritation grew as they refused to leave our table. You're trying to act tough in front of your lady? Please lower your voice. You're bothering the other customers. Roy spoke firmly, showing no sign of fear. This only angered the punks more. One of them blurted out, "Hey! Who do you think you're talking to like that? Acting all high and mighty, you idiot. My brother's a gangster, you know. Saying my brother's a gangster means I'm invincible. Mess with me, and you might just end up at the bottom of the ocean." In my mind, I thought, the idiot here is you, but I didn't want to escalate the situation, so I kept quiet and just watched how things unfolded. Roy let out a sigh of frustration. What? What's with that attitude? Are you disrespecting me? Your brother's a gangster? So what? Sure, your brother might be a gangster and that's scary, but what about you? Aren't you embarrassed? Causing a scene in the restaurant, making baseless accusations, and then hiding behind your brother. Is that supposed to intimidate me? I'm talking to you right now. Your brother being a gangster doesn't scare me. The atmosphere froze for a moment. Everyone in the restaurant, including other customers and the staff, had their eyes glued on us. And, as expected, the punk got furious. His face turned red as he grabbed Roy by the collar, looking like he was about to punch him. Hey! Apologize for what you just said. Apologize now, and I might forgive you. Hurry up! The punk shouted at Roy. However, Roy remained calm and unafraid, replying smoothly. Resorting to violence just because you can't respond? That's not okay. It just shows you're not smart. We're here to eat, so could you please go somewhere else? In that moment, the infuriated punk released Roy's collar and doused him with whiskey from a nearby bottle. Watch it! Don't get cocky! I don't care what happens to you. I'll tell my gangster brother about this. Even the girl you're with will suffer, you hear? The punk glared at Roy, his face red with anger, as he threatened us. He seemed desperate to make Roy apologize, despite Roy's calm demeanor. But Roy wasn't fazed at all. Oh, it is so sticky. I was wearing my favorite clothes and now they're soaked. I couldn't stay silent any longer and stood up after passing a handkerchief to Roy. Hey, what's your name? Which group does your brother belong to? Why don't you call him over now? What? You lost your mind? What are you gonna do with my name? Well, might as well. My brother is a well-known gangster around here. You'd be scared if you knew his name. He's Bob. You know him, right? I've never heard of him. Well, go ahead, call your brother. What? Are you stupid? Call your gangster brother now. I was suddenly firm in my tone, which took the punk by surprise, quieting him down for a moment. But soon, he snapped, "You're crazy." Fine, I'll call him. But even if you two start crying and apologizing later, it's too late for forgiveness. Just try to act tough. Truly an uneducated fool. What was supposed to be a pleasant date was ruined because of these idiots. And to think they dared to insult and pour whiskey on my dear husband was unforgivable. Don't think you can run away scared. You're not getting away. The punk kept provoking us. You really have no class, it's embarrassing. If you hadn't poured whiskey on my husband and just left quietly, none of this would have happened. What? Shut up. You're only brave for now. Soon, you'll be crying, begging for mercy, saying please and sorry, idiot. I was thoroughly convinced the idiot was him, but I was too disgusted to say anything. Meanwhile, as we waited for the punk's brother, I also made a phone call. Hello, it's me. Yeah, I think you know what's going on. Hey, don't you dare make a phone call without permission. Yeah, you heard? Well, it can't be helped. All right, I'll be waiting. After hanging up and a few minutes passed,
The brother arrived at the restaurant, panting heavily as if he had run here.
Hey! Over here. Listen, these guys were totally disrespecting us. You gotta beat them up for me.
The punk reported to his brother with a smug smile. However, as the brother approached, his expression turned fierce and he suddenly punched the punk. The punk, not expecting to be hit by his own brother, was completely unguarded and got knocked down, causing chairs to topple and bottles to shatter on the floor. Concerned about causing trouble for the restaurant, I apologized to the other customers and went to the staff.
I'm really sorry for causing such a commotion. Please keep the change,
I said as I handed over all the cash I had.
Let's talk outside.
Following my lead, the punks were dragged out by the gangster brother. Once we were in a more secluded area, the brother finally spoke.
I'm very sorry for what happened.
The punk, who had bragged about his gangster brother, was completely lost, not understanding what was happening as his brother apologized.
I can't stand idiots without manners. I'm truly sorry. Hey, you guys! What are you standing around for? Don't you realize the situation you're in?
What's gotten into you? We don't need to care about these people. The punks were clearly confused by the unexpected turn of events. They couldn't understand why they, protected by Bob's brother, had to apologize after insulting and being rude to my dear husband, and even pouring whiskey on him. I decided to enlighten the punks about the reality of the situation.
The gangster brother you were relying on is actually my subordinate. Get it? He's part of my crew. I'm the boss here. Tough luck, huh? If you had a bit more discernment, you wouldn't have ended up in this mess. Dousing my husband with sake was definitely not okay.
Yes, the gangster Bob, whom the punk was counting on, had sworn loyalty to me.
Hey! You! You poured sake on the boss's husband? Are you out of your mind? Didn't I tell you not to cause any trouble? No, I didn't know.
The punk, who had been barking loudly until now, suddenly became as meek as a puppy.
Not knowing isn't an excuse. Just apologize already.
I'm sorry.
Speak up. Well, never mind. Let's take this slow and talk it out at the office.
Hearing this, the punk froze. Then, from a black van parked nearby, Bob's underlings started to disembark.
Teach these punks some manners,
I said, and the underlings efficiently shoved the punks into the car, leaving Bob's brother behind. Bob had requested to deal with his brother personally. Bob's brother was pale, finally realizing the gravity of his situation.
Boss, I am truly sorry. I will take full responsibility for this. Well, that's all well and good, but could you first have this punk's brother apologize properly to my husband? Have you not even apologized yet? Apologize now.
Bob barked at his brother, who then turned to my husband, gave a slight bow, and said, I'm sorry. Hearing this, my husband smiled. Seeing my husband's forgiving expression seemed to reassure Bob's brother, thinking he was forgiven. But then my husband said with a smile, You call that an apology? You shouldn't take the adult world lightly. Suddenly, Bob's brother's face went pale, crying and begging for forgiveness.
I'm so sorry. I won't ever do something like that again. Please forgive me. I'll pay for the damage. I'm truly sorry. Apologies need to come from the heart to mean anything, you know? Well, I'm fine now. The rest is up to my wife and Bob.
Roy stepped back, letting Bob take over.
Idiot. Haven't I always told you? Your behavior would bring disaster one day. I've cleaned up your messes before, but this time, there's nothing I can do. I can't forgive you either. The world of gangsters isn't as forgiving as you think. Don't just use my name without understanding the consequences of your actions.
Bob was absolutely right.
What should I do now?
His brother seemed suddenly scared after hearing Bob's words. Bob had already decided on how to handle his brother's situation.
Really? You're okay with this? Yes, I've been prepared for this ever since I joined this world. I'm not the type to run away from something like this. I'm truly sorry. This is the result of me being too lenient with you.
I'm fine, really. I wasn't harmed. But I can't overlook you pouring on my husband. Bob then dragged his brother into the car and drove off. The world of gangsterism is harsh, huh? Bob, despite everything, really cared for his brother. Makes me feel a bit guilty too. Our world is all about loyalty and strict discipline. Well, it was Bob's decision, so let's just watch over them. It's strange, events like these remind me of the past. My parents were heads of a gangster family. A legacy that goes back generations. Being the only daughter of such a family, I grew up isolated. Rumors spread quickly at school and in college. Just one person knowing about me was enough to spread gossip. I considered joining a regular company after graduation, but knew it would be difficult if my background was investigated. I struggled with my future. Feeling the pressure to continue my family's legacy, but also desiring a normal life. Eventually, I chose to live as a gangster. A world that valued loyalty and human bonds. Which suited my personality despite the loneliness. People around me were always cautious, and I couldn't find friends whom I could truly trust. Despite being surrounded by many gangster associates, there was no one who really understood me. I felt profoundly lonely. Roy, my husband, changed that. We met when I was a fresh face in the world. And he stood up to punks despite being outnumbered. Since that time, Roy seemed to have a strong sense of justice, defending someone from punks, which apparently made him a target himself. I helped him. At that time, Roy didn't seem to think I was involved with the gangster. After all, it's not every day that an ordinary woman chases away 5 punks. Thank you so much. You really saved me. You're very strong. What a cool woman. Despite not knowing my background, he thanked me. Are you hungry? If it's okay, I'd like to treat you to a meal. He even invited me for a meal as thanks. Our relationship grew from there. And though I feared telling him about my background, fearing it would end our relationship, his understanding and acceptance only deepened our bond. But I was scared. There had been many people who suddenly changed their attitude or drifted away once they found out I was associated with the gangster. I feared that revealing my true identity would end our relationship. Despite these fears, I continued to date Roy. However, one day, while we were together, a greeting from one of my underlings inadvertently revealed my identity. Boss? My parents were gangster leaders, and I've always lived in that shadow, afraid of being rejected for it. I had a hunch about it pretty early on. You sometimes looked troubled, and I thought it must be hard for you, having to keep something from me. I'm sorry for putting you through that. Having lost my parents when I was young, I'm quite sensitive to feelings of loneliness and isolation. I couldn't ignore it, I could see those same feelings in you. Roy. Meeting Roy made me feel understood for the first time, and that was a joy. Yet, being part of the gangster is different from ordinary life. And the thought of potentially causing him trouble someday made me a bit afraid. Roy, you're truly amazing and kind. But being with me might bring you inconvenience, so maybe. I found myself at a loss for words. Are you suggesting we should break up? I don't want that. I know all the good in you, and being gangster doesn't change who you are. You're you. You've probably had a hard time being the daughter of a gangster, right? You don't have to bear it alone anymore. I'm here for you. Roy said, hugging me gently with a reassuring smile. I have no parents, no close relatives. You're all I have, Sarah. I want to be with you. At that moment, I vowed to spend my life with Roy, to cherish him forever. Yet, now I've dragged him into this situation. And I felt down. Even if Roy seemed calm when confronted by the punks, he might have been scared deep down. If only I had acted sooner. He might now be afraid of me. Thinking he doesn't want a gangster partner. Sarah, are you worrying unnecessarily? I'm sorry for involving you in this. I was afraid it might scare you away.
Sarah, are you worrying about things that aren't even an issue? Do you think I can read minds? But seriously, if anything, I trust you more. Having you by my side, there's nothing to fear. And hey, I'm a man too. I've decided to protect you if the need arises.
Roy's words reinforced my belief that I had chosen the best partner. Someone who truly understands and supports me, even amidst the complexities of my life and background. It's clear that protecting those important to us is paramount. It's my responsibility to ensure no one is left alone. That thought solidified in my mind as we moved on from the incident. I'm hungry, we didn't get to eat. Yeah, let's try another place. And with that, we began walking, ready to move forward.